Sure, let's go.
And
Since
then
the pandemic, the specter of
see if it
income
shows up in
inequality
20
has been on the
seconds.
rise, sometimes
Mhm.
quietly and sneakily passed laws, and
Oh,
sometimes in
sorry,
brazen
6
public
minutes.
demonstrations of record profits and tax
Boy.
cuts for those that need them least in society. From the US to Germany, from the pandemic to the Ukraine conflict, how exactly has social inequality developed? And how has it been allowed to reach such undemocratic heights?
So this is why inequality is on the rise. I want to see how either correct or incorrect he gets it in a 6-minute video.
In this video, we'll discuss the nature of inequality today, what forces are driving it, and how a supposedly democratic system in the wealthiest nations on Earth allows for the exploitation of the poorest in society. If you enjoy what we do, then don't forget to like the video and check out our Patreon for exclusive content and early releases. Social inequality is defined as the condition of unequal access to the benefits and rights of society. This can take the form of employment, such as in France, where unemployment is 7% among ethnic French, 12% for immigrants, and 17% among those that arrived in the past 10 years. Or it can take the form of incarceration rates as a result of systemic racial discrimination, as in the US, where Black Americans represent 12% of the US adult
This is
population,
supposed to
but
be his
33%
news
of the
channel.
sentenced prison population.
Okay. So is he meant to have no sort of bias sort of thing?
I don't know if that's the case. It might just be considered like communist news.
Okay.
But his other channel is like the Theory Bro stuff.
So this should be slightly more tolerable. Slightly.
I don't know. It's
Alrighty.
not as popular, I don't think.
Yeah.
Much more relevant to today's video, though, is income inequality. Since the 1970s, productivity per worker has grown 3.5 times as much as pay, which has remained essentially stagnant for the average employee. According to Oxfam, the earnings of the hyper-wealthy account for half
did it
of all
according
new
to
wealth
these
generated in the past decade.
Mhm.
Billionaires have seen their
And
fortunes
Oxfam,
increase
too.
by
Very
$2.7
good
billion
source.
a day, while nearly 2 billion workers live in countries where a cost of living crisis is devastating entire communities as inflation continues to outpace wages.
True.
Despite half a century of neoliberal dogma claiming tax cuts for the rich means wealth will trickle down, the richest 1% captured nearly 2/3 of all new wealth, worth $42 trillion created in the past few years. This happened in the face of and as a direct result of skyrocketing energy and food prices, as corporate profits drove inflation. In Spain, corporate profit-seeking was responsible for over 83% of price increases.
Mm-hmm.
In the US, 60%, which
That's
gives the
awesome.
lie to the propaganda
Somebody
of
said
the
it for once.
price-wage spiral.
Somebody said it for once. What inflation is actually caused by?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's literally caused by capitalism. It's caused by the infinite growth model. That's why we had rapid inflation. They were making up their profit.
Yep. And it will continue to do that.
Aren't these maps really interesting? Like where the water is
Mm.
like changing colors because of the satellite coverage, like
Yeah.
right? Like, does it actually
I
change
also think it's
colors
depth.
into deep
I think
ocean
it's- I
there?
think it's
But look
depth.
at the islands. There's like it's
Mm.
weird. It gets weird around the islands as well. Like I've been to
Yeah.
certain places and like I've been to places in Mexico. I don't remember where the water's literally blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Yeah,
they got to be
the-
dyeing it to cover up the
Mm.
pollution, right?
I
And like
don't
I
think
also went to this beach in Mexico where you pulled the sand up from the bottom and it was just black with like oil and tar and shit.
Oh,
Like
what
a
the fuck?
fucking harbor, right?
Jesus.
And there's literally like dolphins nearby, like in a dolphin like enclosure type thing. It's like a tourist trap with
Mhm.
dolphins and shit.
Ah, okay.
So I'm like, you know, it was
Yeah.
literally black sand.
And it's just stained with oil.
It stunk. Smells
Oh,
like dirty, like mud, you know? It smelled like mud instead
Mhm.
of sand.
Yuck. That's gross.
Uh-huh.
Anyway.
Viral
Cheery.
myth. To quote Oxfam's report on international poverty, Elon Musk, one of the world's richest men, paid a true tax rate of about 3% between 2014 and 2018. Aber Christine, a flower vendor in Uganda, makes $80 a month and pays a tax rate of 40%.
Mm-hmm.
This is reproduced in nearly every workplace on Earth. But that doesn't get to the heart of the matter, which is, why and how can the ultra-wealthy get away with siphoning off such massive sums of money? Worldwide,
I
only
don't really
4 cents
think
of
that
every
it's
tax.
appropriate to go to Uganda there, because it's like
Yeah,
to frame it as this was all, billionaires who make Africa poor. Like, their leaders, like, we don't keep their leaders in power, like their leaders,
yeah,
like, once you if you're a dictator, you can maintain power. It's not difficult with corruption
yeah,
and
yeah.
shit. So like,
Keep. I need to let the dog in, so just keep talking.
I'm done talking. Hit play. All right. Okay.
Tax dollar comes from taxes on wealth. Half of the world's billionaires live in countries with no inheritance tax for direct descendants.
Uh-huh.
They will pass on a $5 trillion tax-free treasure chest to their children, more than the total GDP of Africa, which will ensure a future generation of aristocratic elites. Rich people's income is mostly unearned, derived from returns on their assets. Yet it is taxed on average at 18%, barely half as much as the average top tax rate on wages and salaries. Under the capitalist system, all ruling structures are built by and for capital. At every level, from political appointment to the passing of laws, the interests of the capitalist class determine what is allowed and what is not. An example of this would be the ability of half the world's billionaires to live in countries with absolutely 0% inheritance tax. This will allow up to $5 trillion of unearned wealth to flow tax-free to the next generation of the ruling class. Again, unearned, as this income is derived mostly from returns
This is
on
where it's like, stop saying ruling class and shit. Like,
Yeah, it's
like,
very outdated.
it's not helpful for a specific reason. It's because that's not the dialogue that's used in our politics, right? Your dialogue should kind of like mirror words Bernie Sanders uses. Bernie Sanders isn't talking about the imperial core and bourgeoisie.
Yeah,
So like,
he's saying the 1% and
yeah,
the
so like, if
ruling
you actually
elite,
want to
stuff
like
like
bring
that.
about effective change, you need to be more pragmatic and like just say the wealthy, the rich. Like, AOC is just
Normalize
tax
your
the rich,
language.
not like down with the
Yeah,
bourgeoisie,
yeah.
because nobody would
Mhm.
buy that.
Yeah, because
Also, I was
tune out.
speaking of which, I was editing something and it was like a Ben Shapiro video, and I remember specifically saying that, like, oh, she's like charging more money because of the campaign sweater, right? And I wasn't in the video, right? So I was like, oh, was I muted when I said that? Because like, I distinctly remember me saying that and you going, that's a good point. So did maybe we watched the same Ben Shapiro video twice and made a video to it twice again?
I mean, that's possible.
Uh-huh.
It would have been in one of the deleted videos.
Assets. Put simply, that means having enough money to begin with to own more stuff, such as property, natural resources, factories, and so on, which will generate returns, which will in turn be reinvested into the same system. Meanwhile, regular people who work for a living are made to surrender anywhere from 20% to nearly half their pay in income taxes, as they own very little, if anything at all. This is even more egregious when polling is clear that the vast majority of people globally support raising taxes.
The point isn't that they're ineffective liberals. The point is that if you're trying to recruit people to your commie cult, you should use normal language for normal people instead of like only language for people who don't touch grass. Like, Bernie Sanders attracted everyone, including the fascists, just because of his policy.
Yeah, exactly.
Taxes on the wealthiest in society. This is the case for the majority of the US, 80% of Indians, 85% of Brazilians, and nearly 70% of people polled in most of Africa. The primary issue here is that if it's workers generating wealth through their work, and natural resources are already there, with the necessary, usually state-funding initiated industry ready to make use of them, why are we bothering with taxing the wealthy at all?
I don't know.
What?
It would have been a good example.
He used India instead.
Mm.
Why would you do?
Wonder what the point's gonna be.
Weird that he wouldn't choose a country like China to present income equality.
Very strange.
No
If the
ruling
property
class
is
there.
already
No, definitely not. No, it's very equal. Everyone gets the same.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely no billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
built, usually by workers who could
'Cause
never
they kill
afford to
them.
live there in the first
According
place.
to
Uh-huh.
Why
commies,
are
that's why China's
conversations
great.
always centered around
They
minimizing
kill
the
the
spoils
billionaires.
of people greedily siphoning wealth from the rest of society, instead of taking away those mechanisms and using them to enrich all of society more evenly and equitably? The research is clear. The wealthiest in society are the biggest individual contributors to the climate crisis. Through their investments, they support measures that are responsible for twice as many emissions as the poorest 50% of the population. Estimates
Well,
of their
yeah, obviously, but also, why are we not dogging on the military? Why we could have easily included behind the U.S. military, which is exempt there. Like, I think as like a
True.
leftist presenter, there's always room to put that in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's always a very good point.
individual carbon footprints are nearly 30 times greater than the level agreed to in the Paris Agreement. When we're dealing with the precarity of human existence, the overburdening of the earth, the overexploitation of entire nations to support the selfish
Very be
consumption of the
scared.
smallest sliver of humanity, why does the conversation never go beyond the lightest slap on the wrist and a few more cents in taxes? It's because the capitalist system is designed that way. It wasn't built for you or me. It was built to maintain the economic, social, and political supremacy of capital. Throughout history, under socialist
Oh,
or
shit.
social democratic systems, the further you went with nationalization, socialization of industry, and economic planning, the better the quality of life was for nations at equal levels of economic development. Capitalism, by its very nature, is only able to care about the accumulation of capital. And because the logic of the profit motive always leads to monopolization, that accumulation ends up in the hands of fewer and fewer oligarchs. Maybe it's time to consider what a different economic
It's so basic, and it's always, try communism. I bet we don't try either of them. Can you just kill them both, please?
Yeah.
Just holy shit. The answer's almost you just almost there.
A new
Almost
system.
there. Yeah, fucking hell. It's not new. Leave it in the 20th century.
system has to offer. This episode and others like it are
What do you
Oh,
think of
no.
his desk succulents?
ever since the
I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, so like you get these little desk succulents at the grocery store for $5, you know? Well, good grocery stores, you know? At Wegmans,
These
like
ones.
yeah, you get them at like
Mm.
Wegmans and shit here.
They're very stereotypical.
Mm-hmm.
The
This is
background's
so
very
much more
fake, too.
chill than his actual like it's still
Yeah,
the
it was.
same. Like that's the same couch, but it's not like in my face, and like he doesn't do a set change halfway through.
Yeah. He doesn't try and put the Johnny Harris flair on it.
Mm-hmm. Normal
Does
lighting
it
as
straight.
well.
Yeah. Not too bad. Okay, what's next?
I want to start with the Vosh bin Laden video, and then see if
Mhm.
he's too wrong, we'll stay on it. If he's too right, we'll go listen to Hassan and Chunk argue with each other
Alright.
and have both of them be awful and cringe.
Unskippable ads.
The propaganda war
That's-
really badly, especially online, especially with young
Propaganda
people.
war.
This is leading people to
Mm.
discover all sorts of new things about politics, like the current viral TikTok trend of reacting to Osama bin Laden's
Mm-hmm.
letter to America, where
You do
a
it now.
bunch of
You pull it
like,
up
I don't
and you
know,
read it and do a react
23-year-olds
to it,
act
Vosh.
as though letter to America is some kind of hidden secret document that has been kept from the American people. And I mean, trying to go back to life as normal after reading Osama bin Laden's letter to America and realizing everything we learned about the Middle East 9/11 and terrorism was a lie.
What do you-
1.1 million views.
That's
Okay.
like, what do you mean? What did you learn? You know, for those kids, like, what did you learn? You're muted, bro. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
I am muted. They went to learning something from nothing, so their minds are blown. That's all it was.
Like, it's weird to me because, like, especially with the Iraq War, that attitude that's expressed in that letter is more present today than.
Yeah.
So, like, did you learn that the Iraq War was good?
Yeah, it's questionable. It could just be like someone did it, then it blew up, so everybody else is copying it. It could just be one of those things.
Hmm.
But who knows?
Keffels is trending because of something.
Mm.
Something they said they were like, she's if they're mad at her because she used this term that's like derogatory for non-binaries, but I'd never heard the term before, so I wasn't, I didn't know. I don't know what it means. So
Righty.
How did these kids not even know about Bin Laden? A lot of these kids probably literally weren't born when 9/11 happened. They were the letter to America was written before they were born. So yeah, now we have a bunch of these like, well, no excuse to this guy. This guy's not 20. I hope. Zoomers.
No, he looks in his
Zoomers
20s. He looks
discovering
young.
history. Anyway, we can just read it. It's not a secret.
Yes.
It was published in like 2002, I think.
Let's go.
God. From CNN. Some young
More Bin
Americans
Laden
say
pop
they
propaganda
sympathize
on
with Osama bin
stream.
Laden. Oh no. Oh God. People are getting negatively polarized into becoming fucking jihadists. Al Qaeda is about to get a membership surge entirely from
Bro,
like
spoilers.
they, them, American leftoids who believe that Al Qaeda was like a principled anti-imperialist organization.
Yeah, they
God
were.
damn it.
They were.
Hey, listen, okay. Nobody
Look,
cue
if
these
there
kids
was
in on the
one
fact that
way,
Osama
if
bin
there was
Laden-
one way I would describe Al Qaeda, right? And it wasn't with negative things like they're like terrorists, it would be principled anti-monarchy,
Okay.
freedom fighters,
Interesting.
so. But the thing is that the commies who think this are stupid and they don't actually understand. They think that he was actually attacking America. It's like
Yeah.
it's like you're coming to the not correct conclusion, but like a conclusion that can be made, but you're doing it in the wrong way. So that's why in math you
yeah.
have to show your work.
You show your work.
was from the House of Saud, the like ultra multi-billion-dollar construction magnate, one of the most powerful corporate forces in the Middle East.
House
And that
of
he was like an
Saud.
ultra wealthy fail son. To the American people. Read the
Bro,
letter, no balls. I just said we were going to
if
do that.
Bin
What do you
Laden
want?
was in the House of Saud, the ruling monarchical family of Saudi Arabia, can you imagine? We might have actually
it would be very
went
different.
after Saudi Arabia instead of protecting him.
It'd be very different. Interesting.
Isn't 9/11 taught in the States? In America, 9/11 is basically taught as, and then the Muslims were really mad at us because we have girls in bikinis and we have sunglasses and we have beer and we have freedom and we have internet
This
porn.
is called
So they got
Kutubism.
really mad at us and they wanted to kill a bunch of us. But thankfully we beat
This is called Kutubism. It's one of the principal philosophies that they have. So Kutub isn't like the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, but like to simplify everything, we're going to say Sayyid Qutb is the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. He's more of the philosopher of it, right? And so like this kid was a little radical little bitch boy, right? So this is like, like maybe the 50s, right? It was the nuclear family era of America where it was post World War and like people were cutting loose a little bit. So they sent him. Why is it Saudi Arabia in the first place? Is that a joke? It's called Saudi Arabia because it's ruled by the Saudi family. It's Arabia under the House of Saud. I assume this is a joke, and it's sarcasm. So Khatub, he was being a little radical bitch in Egypt. Also, I got to show you his mustache, and it will all make sense. It's explained with his mustache, really. But he goes to America, and he sees lawns, and loses his mind about it. Right?
Mhm.
Then he sees people wearing jeans that make their butts look good, loses his mind about it. Right? And then he goes to like a church function and he sees men and women dancing too close together and he gets really mad about it. And he writes this book about how America is the devil because they allow people to dance too close together. Now, wait till you see his mustache because you're going to be like, wow, of course he's evil, right? There he is.
Oh my god.
Right? So, like, you know how I have that
Awesome.
meme where it's Bin Laden in the Zawahiri and it says "fuck the HOA." That's why I
Yeah.
have that meme because Bin Laden fucking hates lawns because of this guy. So like the whole thing is like he has like a whole chapter of the book where he's just going on about how like they should be praying to God instead of maintaining their lawns and all this stuff. It's not about like all the wasted water and stuff. It's like why aren't they bowing down and worshiping God? Well, instead of like they worship their lawns more than God. What a savage country, right? And so like Zwahari has like said like they all have read this book. It was the most influential book at the time when they like were forming these radical groups.
Interesting.
And it's more of like
so they
it's
all
a
hate
very
lawns.
well, it's like one maybe they can't grow them, but they're just jealous, you know. But it's a very it's a very fascist. We're better than the West type of book, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, have you seen Ataturk? You know, saying like Erdogan added a little on the sides at least, but you can still see that Hitler stash is under there
Yeah.
for Erdogan too.
Muslims by invading 2 of their countries. That's not Letter to America. This is. Wait, I haven't read it yet. Oh yeah, sorry. This is Letter to the American People. This is Letter to America. You know, the Guardian article that listed the Letter to America has removed the document for some reason. I've noticed many young people online usually watch or read one thing some dictator says and then go, "Oh my God, he's so base," completely ignoring their actions. I think a lot of that is because a lot of young people, especially populists, are so sick of liberal civility that they will jump on any leader with the quote unquote balls to say, you know, something deviant and contrary, even if it's like
Well, it's like,
incredibly stupid.
we hear
or
this with
personally
Second Thought,
false.
right?
You
He's
know?
like talks about like I'm just criticizing America, and like he's like not actually criticizing America, right?
No.
And like I think that's the thing is just like they're pointing out like these specific factors as being like based and anti-imperialist,
Mm-hmm.
and so they identify with these factors when they read that letter because they've been conditioned.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. And we're going to see more of it as well. People are slowly realizing. I mean, look at the Ted Kaczynski reawakening when he died. People went nuts. People who have never seen that before found it fucking crazy. Now everybody loves him. All right.
And they just completely missed the blatant anti-Semitism. We'll read it.
Kind of based.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious.
Oh,
the
come
most
on! They
merciful,
always do. You skip
permission to
it.
fight
Skip
against
the
disbelievers is given to those believers who are fought against.
skip the
Okay,
religious
I don't
shit they
wanna
got to
read
put
about
in the
this
beginning.
shit. Okay,
Thank
let's-
you,
let's just
Vosh.
skip this part.
Yes, my man, bro.
While seeking Allah's help, we form a reply based on 2 questions directed at the Americans. Question 1: Why are we fighting and opposing?
Why
you?
are you gay?
Question
You
2:
think the sound bites
What are
work
we
today?
calling you
Are they
to?
echoing?
And what do we want from you? As for the first question, why are we
We'll
fighting and
see.
opposing you? The answer is very simple. 1, because you attacked us and continued to attack us.
Why are you gay?
A,
Why
you
are you
attacked us
gay?
in
Why
Palestine.
are you gay?
I didn't turn off the auto
Palestine, which
loop.
has sunk under
Why are
military
you gay?
occupation for more than 80 years. The British handed over Palestine with your help and your support to the Jews, who have occupied it
didn't
for more
echo
than
for me,
50
though.
Those
years.
damn
Years
Jews.
overflowing with oppression, tyranny, crimes, killing, expulsion,
Why
destruction,
are
and
you gay?
devastation. Guys, did you
Sounds
know
fine.
that
They
a
work this
jihadist
time.
militant might take issue with Israel's presence in the Middle East. I am shocked and in
Yes.
disbelief.
And the
that
road to
Osama bin
Jerusalem
Laden,
is through
the head of Al Qaeda,
what?
might take issue with Israel being in the Middle East. This is information that was hidden from me.
They
The creation
referenced
and
the Protocols of
continuation
Elder
Israel is one
Zion.
of
I
the
mean, I
greatest
wrote that
crimes,
book.
and you
You know,
would
there's
That's a
like
great book.
leaders
They
of criminals.
referenced the
Daesh-
Protocols
And
of
of course, there is no need
Totally.
to explain and
No one
prove
up here is
that
gonna-
American support for Israel.
Stop
Attacking
clicking.
Israel is a crime which must be
Sorry.
What are
erased.
you doing,
Each and
bro?
every person whose hand
It was an accident.
Fucking Daesh, one of the things that they'll say, this is like a very common like Daesh thing, and they'll make memes about this. And like the people in Daesh who make, like, sometimes they used to have good memes, but like now it's like really bad. They're like awful at it now because like all their like good people died when all the British kids were assassinated by the Americans. And like they basically say that Al Qaeda is actually controlled by the Jews, and that's why they never attack Israel. And then Daesh also like doesn't attack Israel. They've only recently been able to do it, but so there's this
Why
whole
is that?
thing.
Because they're too
Huh?
strong. They don't want to get wiped out.
I mean, it's think about how hard it is to actually pull off a terrorist attack in Israel. Like, when was the last
Mm.
suicide bombing?
I don't actually know.
Yeah, exactly. Like the only thing you'll see is like knife attacks, right? But Daesh did those shootings, you know, and like
Yeah.
the
It's like in
public
China,
massacres.
there's only
And
really
Daesh
knife-
were also part of the October 7th attack.
Really?
Yeah.
Why not take
People
the
who were
opportunity, I guess?
Well, I mean, I imagine, like, if you think about it, it would be like free contractors, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like Daesh is dead.
Yeah,
They
right.
don't like they need the money. How else are they going to get work? What
Hire a
else are
terrorist.
they supposed to do, you know?
1-800 hire me.
Yeah, I mean that's what the Connies do. Like the Connies were there too
Yeah.
because of that. Because it's like that's who you hire. You need extra
Mm.
guys. You don't like we hire contractors. They hire contractors.
It's interesting.
But Al Qaeda doesn't fuck with the Muslim Brotherhood, so that's why they don't fuck with Israel, because then they'd have to work with Hamas, and they're like, fuck that, they're Muslim Brotherhood, even though Sayyid Qutb was Muslim Brotherhood. You see how stupid this is?
Yeah.
This
It
is
all
why
comes
they're
around,
exactly
so-
like tankies, bro. Exactly like
Yeah.
them. There's no difference.
hands have become polluted in the contribution towards this
They even
crime
call each other
must pay its
reformists.
price and pay for it heavily.
Of course they do.
2. It brings us both laughter and tears to see that you have not yet tired of repeating your fabricated lies that the Jews have a historical right to Palestine as it was promised to them in the Torah. Anyone who disputes with them on this alleged fact is accused of anti-Semitism. This is one of the most fallacious, widely circulated fabrications in history. The people of Palestine are
You see how
pure
smart bin
Arabs
Laden
and
is to like
original
write this
Semites.
though?
Yeah.
You know why he knows this?
It already puts a scapegoat in.
You know why he knows this though? Because like his whole family is in America already. You know, the Bin Laden family, not the House of Saud family. Also, like it's so funny that he said he was part of the House of Saud because the Bin Laden family is from Yemen.
Mm.
So like he's ethnically from Yemen.
Interesting. So why Saudis?
Well, they emigrated, but his dad was born in Yemen.
Okay.
Get your fingers out your mouth.
Semites. It is the Muslims who are the inheritors of Moses. Okay, peace be upon him, and the inheritors of the real Torah that has not been changed. Muslims believe in all the prophets, including Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon them all. If the followers of Moses have been promised a right to Palestine in the Torah, the Muslims are the most worthy nation of this. So, I can't believe I'm about to
Interesting. You know, notice what he said there. So this is a translation, right? When he says Muslim nation, right? So, like, because we talk about what nation actually means, right?
Yeah.
What he's saying there is it would probably be a translation of Ummah, which I'm not sure if that's the right pronunciation, but it's UMMAH, and it's basically all global Muslims, right? It's the community of Muslims.
Yeah.
It's a nation of Muslims, the Ummah. So like you'll hear this a lot. Like if you'll see me, like I'll share people who are like radicals, some, you know, possibly Al Qaeda affiliate stuff, and I'll share these people, because they're saying base shit, you know.
Yeah.
and about like Assad being bad and shit. So, but they'll say things like
Hmm.
that. They'll say like the Ummah and stuff about a lot of stuff.
Okay.
But okay. First of all, notice how his apparent opposition to Israeli presence in the Middle East is in large part founded upon him having the exact same set of beliefs, just with a different group. That is to say, historical religious claim to the
Fuck off. I'm telling you, they don't give me ads right now. It's weird. They don't even say, "Hey, you can't have ads."
He at first opens with a correct argument, which is that Israel has committed war crimes and ethnic cleansing, and that
Yeah,
is
but he'd be a
backed by
hypocrite
American and British
'cause
support, and so on and so forth.
right?
Mm.
You can't just be like Israel is the real terrorist. It's not Bin Laden
Yeah,
style.
yeah,
That's
you
how
have to
commies talk, like the Vanguard.
Yeah. I mean, you have to incur hypocrisy at some point when
Yeah.
you write this sort of stuff, but you don't really care because this is what they're gonna believe. It's like, oh, it's from him. It's his word. Like you
But he
can't be
just needs
lying.
more than just that, you know?
Yeah.
That's true. But then he goes on to be like, and anyway, did you know it's actually the Muslims who are the historical inheritors of the Middle East? It's like, it's not exactly coming from a place of principled humanitarianism, for one. We'll get more. When the Muslims conquered Palestine and drove out the Romans, Palestine and Jerusalem returned to Islam and the religion of all the prophets, peace be upon them. Therefore, the call to a historical right to Palestine cannot be raised against the Islamic Ummah that believes in all the
Nope, they
prophets
still
of
put it
Allah,
in
and we
there.
make no
It's-
distinction between them.
So
I'm
maybe he
pretty
did
sure that
actually use the
Muslims
word
make a
nation,
distinction
which
between
makes it more
Muhammad and the others,
interesting
but okay.
if he actually said
Um,
nation.
Yeah, it actually belongs to the Romans, okay? The Romans have the real historical claim. We need to
Uh,
give the Holy Land to the Pope, okay?
Nebuchadnezzar.
Like the Pope already controls
Yeah. Before
Yeah.
before
And you know who
Rome.
the third Nebuchadnezzar is according to them?
You did tell me, but I can't remember.
Yeah, you know. Search your feelings. You know it to be true. You know who it is. Where was Mesopotamia?
Can't remember.
Where is the
Saddam.
huh?
It was Saddam, right?
Yes.
It was Saddam, wasn't it?
Saddam believes he's the third Nebuchadnezzar. He even carved his name into Nebuchadnezzar's sites and I almost said holy sites, but archaeological sites. He carved his name into them.
Mhm. Jesus Christ.
I know, right? He's so
Yeah,
funny.
what a wanker. What an absolute wanker.
one holy territory in the Vatican, all right? The Pope should also get Jerusalem. That would make the tradcasts happy. I wish people got the more nuanced take that the Israel's defeat of Arab socialists and nationalists led to the Salafist jihadist movements. 2 points. For one, there is a proud and decades-long, centuries-long tradition of Arab socialism that has repeatedly been crushed by people like Osama bin Laden that gets ignored in engagements like this. That's one.
Bro, what?
I mean, Jesus, look what happened in Iran. For two, Osama
Bro,
bin Laden
what?
doesn't give a
Bro,
shit about
what?
the Palestinian people.
What do you mean
and
what
neither
happened
does
in
modern-day
Iran?
Saudi Arabia.
Hold
What do
on.
you mean?
Osama
Bro,
bin-
the Shah killed the leftists, bro. He shot them in the street. He was a nationalist, right? And like as
Mhm.
far as like fighting against the socialists, like what do you mean? Like, you know, like you mean Afghanistan when they were doing a genocide against the Muslim radicals? Right. It's the nationalists, not the socialists. The socialists were also crushed by nationalist governments. In fact, when they arrested the socialists, they went to prison and they became the fucking Islamic radicals in prison because when they were tortured and
Mhm.
shit. Right. It's all caused by nationalism.
It's the root
That's why they
problem.
sent Said Qutb away in the first place because he was too Muslim and not nationalist.
Too Muslim.
Laden, like you can read up in his history if you want, okay? Osama bin Laden was a hardline, like jihadist and anti-Western interventionist. His principal issue was not with
Is
the
he?
suffering of the Palestinian people, but rather with the fact that the West continued to meddle in the affairs of the Middle East.
You believe that?
But
You can go
I
back and
think
read up on it. Uh-huh.
he's not reading, is he? This is his
No, but you
opinion.
can read up on it because tons of people are of this misnomer because they believe the words that came out of the guy's mouth.
You're right.
Well, the words that he wrote, that his wife wrote.
Mm.
Let's be honest. He didn't write this. His wife did. My wife.
You know, he was not a humanitarian. You can take a look at like his entire history. From day
That's
one
not okay,
onward, even
bro.
back when he was
Again, not a humanitarian, and at any point in his history, he built tunnels in Afghanistan. He built roads in Afghanistan. You can see him not only in there to build the infrastructure for people, but there's videos of him literally like on the tractor or bulldozer or whatever. Like there's a video of him actually doing the labor himself. He didn't just like rule over people like a foreman, right?
Man
This
of the
is why
people.
he was a man of the people. That's why he was so
Mm.
that's like he was a very quiet guy. Like he didn't have a lot of charisma, but he was quiet and wealthy, and these people aren't used to like the boss and the wealthy person like being
Mm.
humble around them, because bin Laden was so shy that he was like humble.
Right.
And this became one of the things that became very attractive about him to people.
He wasn't this big, mean, tough guy.
Hmm.
Mm. You actually got gratitude for doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And he was one of the people, like he ate with you.
Mm.
And he ate the
Yeah.
same thing as you. You're surviving on bread and water. He's also eating bread and water. He could afford to go buy more food. If he bought food,
He's
it
a
would be for
communist.
everyone.
Yeah. He's a communist.
He is very, very, like, that's what I'm saying. There's no difference
Mm.
between them.
Yeah. Mhm.
was working with the United States, he was very obviously primarily motivated by you can't
Okay,
even really
this is
call it
funny. Why are people on
anti-imperialism
the
because
internet
he didn't.
calling Jesus an Arab? Because technically he was born in Palestine, right? Because the region is
Mhm.
called Palestine, and because they think Palestinians are Arabs instead of Semitic. But technically Arabs are also Semitic too, but like Palestinians are closer to the Israeli and stuff than they might be Arabs, I think. They might be both. And also that, like, they still, a lot of Palestinians have Kurdish surnames because of Saladin.
Interesting.
You'll see a lot, like literally, like one of the
Wait, was
more famous
Saladin
poems is Al Kurd.
Kurdish?
Yeah, Saladin was Kurdish.
No shit.
Yeah, so that's
Interesting.
that's why all the Kurdish like radical stuff, you'll often see them like being called the Saladin brigades and stuff like that,
Mm.
because
Okay.
they draw on him because he put Islam above everything and
Mm.
was able to unite. And that's
Mm.
why the Christians couldn't beat him, because
Interesting.
they were fucking bickery little bitches, right? Like if you think about it, look how much there are different schools of thought in Islam, but
Mm.
like the main two schools are really Shia and Sunni, right? There's like other like minor
Yeah.
things, but compared to like Christianity, which there's like who knows how many at this point, like
Yeah.
someone has that answer. It's not me.
A single group of like a family can be a splinter cell cult of Christianity.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
especially
it's
here with the
wild.
fucking Latter-day
Mm.
Saints and shit.
There would be so many. The number would be almost uncountable. It's crazy to think about.
Didn't have a problem with imperialism was when it was against like his own people. He didn't have a problem with religious autocracy. It was mostly just Western imperialism. I mean, frankly, infidels. To pull out a meme word, like that was his thing, right? Bust the infidels out, get them out of there. But it wasn't humanitarian. 3, the blood pouring out of Palestine must be equally revenged. You must know that the Palestinians do not cry alone. Their women are not widowed alone. Their sons are not orphaned alone. You attack us in Somalia. You supported the Russian atrocities against us in Chechnya, the Indian oppression against us in Kashmir, the Jewish aggression against us in Lebanon.
Isn't
Under
this
your
funny?
supervision, consent,
What
and
he
orders, the
specific
government of
Mm.
he
Russia
says you
act as
supported
their agents
Russian
and keep us on
aggression,
a
but
daily.
like what about when we push back on Russian aggression? Like really the only one that really makes sense there is Somalia, but
Mm.
because of where bin Laden was at the time in Afghanistan, Kashmir was kind of a big deal back then. Like there's like a
Yeah.
Taiba where it's like the one where I always go, I love Black Flag because it's like 5 squares and like the sword. That's like a
Yeah.
Kashmiri group, and like a lot of Abdullah Azzam did a lot of work in Kashmir as well. So naturally, he brought Bin Laden along for that because that was his cash
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah, of course.
So Bin
Can't
Laden is really
have
attached to
can't give you
Kashmir.
all at a time. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
basis, prevent our people from establishing the Islamic Sharia using violence and lies to do so. These governments give us a taste of humiliation and places us in a large prison of fear and subdual. These governments steal our Ummah's wealth and sell it to you at a paltry price. These
Mhm.
governments have surrendered to the Jews and handed them most of Palestine, acknowledging the existence of their state over the dismembered limbs of their own people.
Oh,
The
see, this is
removal of
all the
these
true
governments
shit.
is an
We
obligation
have
upon us,
Jews.
and a necessary step to free the Ummah, to make the Sharia the supreme law, and to regain Palestine. And our fight against these governments is not separate from our fight against you. From out fight against
Right, but not like in Gaza because their Sharia is bad,
What'd you
right? 'Cause we
say?
never hear Bin Laden talking about fucking Hamas being based in their Sharia. You know, so you want Sharia, but only, but not Hamas Sharia, not ISIS Sharia. There also is like Sharia. There's like an autonomous Philippines place that has Sharia.
Really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
and then also I think Brunei
Must get
enforces
hot.
Sharia. But I'm not sure because their ruler might be a weirdo who has like no religion except me. What do you think of the
Yeah, like
chances of
cult.
Kashmir leading to the end of the world? This is like an old thing that people have
Mm.
always said, where
Oh,
because
the Pakistan
Pakistan
and
and
India are
India
gonna
have
nuke each
nuclear
other.
weapons and they'll fight over
Yeah.
Kashmir. I don't like what does Kashmir have that's worth ending the world over?
Silks and shit, right?
Like who? Like come on, like nah. Russia hitting Poland being a trigger to an Armageddon
Yeah,
event is a bigger chance than
much
Kashmir, I think.
more likely, yeah.
The also like the
100%.
worry is also the fall of the Pakistan. I might have said Palestine before, but the Pakistani government, right? The fall of the Pakistani government, like who would get nukes
Mhm.
in Pakistan? That's also a fear.
True.
The same fear that they have with like Iran, but also at the same time, I'm like, if it happens, then we'll worry about it, type of thing.
Imagine a fucking terrorist with a nuke.
Like China and India won't team up
Christ.
to annihilate whoever is like,
Oh,
get
yeah.
control of that shit,
Yeah. I think
Like,
that'd end all their conflicts.
it could. But yeah, Kashmir is just not as important as it used to be.
Mm. I also think that there could be a flashpoint in China somewhere as well.
If
Possibly
China's
with
actually
Japan.
stupid enough to go for Taiwan, that could be bad.
Yeah, possibly with Japan, like
I
they
just don't
might
see China as dumb enough to actually do it.
Yeah, I think you
But I
put a bit
also
too much faith in
was
them.
doubting Putin invading Ukraine, so
Mhm. Very true. So who knows? The future is open and wonderful and hopeful and very exciting.
against you? Epic fail. You steal our wealth and oil at paltry prices because of your international influence and
see,
military
this is
threats.
so funny
Your
because
international influence and
OPEC,
military threats.
right?
This theft is
Mm.
indeed the biggest theft ever witnessed by mankind in the history of the world. That's probably not true.
What about China, Bin
Again,
Laden?
I want to be clear. One of the reasons why these dipshit Zoomers
We
What do you mean?
literally like maybe at this time we were still buying oil from these places, but like like now we don't even buy oil, so
Well, America's completely independent, right?
like the oil cartel controls the price of oil. We have to beg them for
Mm.
mercy. Like
Mm.
there was an oil boycott. There's a great interview with the Shah because the Shah is like seeing him take journalist questions because he has this energy is like, ask the wrong question, I'll fucking kill you here on camera. He really has those vibes. And this journalist is talking to him, and he's asking about oil prices.
Mm.
And the Shah is like, you have more oil than anyone else in the world. Why do I care? Like he's like, we have big lines for oil, and the Shah is just like, oh well.
Oh, asshole.
Dude, he's so hardcore. I'll pull up the speech after this. I'll send it to
Okay.
you because it's
Well,
pretty
it's an
funny.
hour long.
Yeah,
Only
I
10
mean, we'll
minutes in.
see. If it continues like this, we're gonna get tons of content out of it.
On TikTok are falling for this is because Osama bin Laden is correctly pointing out that the consequences of Western imperialism in the Middle East have been disastrous. He was right on that specific point.
Mhm.
The problem is that his underlying methodology for arriving at that conclusion and what he actually wanted the Middle East to look like were not good. Like, does anyone seriously think Osama bin Laden was trying to build out some kind of like secular, humanist, egalitarian Middle East? Like, no. The people who he agreed with and
Secular,
worked
no,
with, and the
obviously that was
ideology
his
he
issue.
pushes is one which represents all the atrocities he attributes to the West. The only difference is that we have the power to commit them. You know, if the positions were reversed, he would be no better. In all likelihood, he would be worse. So probably not a good idea to. It's like I've said so
Hard to
many times
say.
before. It's not enough to agree
What
when
did
another
the
person identifies a
when these
problem.
like when these people like gained control of like Idlib and shit, like they were better than Daesh. Were they better than Assad? Would people rather live under like the control of like a Sharia Shura council in Idlib or Assad? If they were really left up to like one or the other in like an actual like democratic system of who would vote
Mm.
in Syria, because the majority of the population is Sunni, they would probably lean Sunni. But like, let's just like say like none of that exists, and it's really just like two choices of shit, right?
Mhm.
Even though I don't think the Idlib government was like all that bad at all, compared to Assad.
Well, compared to Assad, anything's
Yeah.
better.
Mm-hmm.
So,
You can only agree with them after they propose a solution, right? If you go around agreeing with everyone who says the government is controlled by oligarchs, you're going to end up agreeing with a lot of Nazis. You need to know what they think of their prescriptions and what they want to do about it. This is the same Zizek point that even if Nazis were correct, it didn't justify their positions. Yeah, this is what I said with non-compete. This is why you need a fucking ethical
Here we go.
framework.
World War
Because
II.
even in spite, like even if you run through everything the Nazis did, like they lied, they were wrong on everything. But even if somehow they were right, it wouldn't have justified what they did. Like you have to fight it on two fronts. It's like what Israel does, right? Even if Israel was right in all of the propaganda and lies they put forward, that every single hospital is a Hamas base, that every single Palestinian baby is given like a suicide bomb vest from day one or whatever. It wouldn't justify the indiscriminate bombing of the Gaza Strip. It's not enough to simply say they're wrong in the facts; they're wrong in their framework, and that is what Osama bin Laden is wrong on. He's also wrong on a lot of these facts, but your forces occupy our countries, you spread your military bases throughout them, you corrupt our lands, you besiege our sanctities to protect the security of the Jews and to ensure the continuity of your
damn
pillage of our
juice.
treasures. Man, considering the fact that all this Western imperialism was pretty much entirely done and orchestrated by Christians, it's very weird how Jews are the ones who he specifically names over and over and over again. Like everything, all of this bedrock is built upon the power of the largely Christian West from Christendom, And for some reason,
He doesn't
the
see the.
Jews are the
He
ones who
probably
keep
doesn't
getting
see
named.
America as
You have
Christian,
starving
knowing
Muslims
him.
of Iraq, where children die every day.
I don't know.
Little
I
wonder that
think
more
he
than
would be
1.5
he
million
would be
Iraqi
including.
children
George Bush was
have
doing
died
all
as a
that
result
Christian shit,
of your
so
sanctions, and you did not show concern. Yet when 3,000 of your people died, the entire world
I've
rises
never really
to
heard him
protest that down.
say shit that I can think of about Christians specifically. Just because there's so much Jew and
Just
Muslim
armor.
shit in there,
Yeah, weird.
There probably is stuff. I just can't think of it because there's,
Yeah.
I've read his entire like diary, so it took
Mm-hmm.
like over a year. There's so much because it's just years of his personal diary, writing and shit.
Yeah, schizo shit.
There's a lot of
You've
shit that's
supported the
public
Jews
in
Yeah.
those
and their
from those
idea that
drives.
Jerusalem is their eternal capital and agreed to move your embassy there. With your help and under your protection, the Israelis are planning to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Under the protection of your weapons, Sharon entered the Al-Aqsa Mosque to pollute it as a preparation to capture and destroy it. What does he mean Sharon. Is that like a... Oh, no, he means a person. Ariel Sharon, an Israeli general and politician. Okay.
Hmm.
Just making sure. 2. These tragedies and calamities are only a few examples of your oppression and aggression against us. It is commanded by our religion and intellect that the oppressed have a right to return the aggression. Do not await anything from us but jihad, resistance, and revenge. Is it in any way rational to expect that after America has attacked us for more than half a century, that we
Well,
will
it's
then leave her
interesting
to live in
because
security and peace?
the senior Haqqani, the founder of the Haqqani network,
Mhm.
one of my favorite speeches by Siraj is how his dad told him, "Don't make jihad revengeful."
Interesting. Revengeful how? Like as a retaliation.
Yeah, well, he's saying it mainly because you know how Chechens have the blood feuds that will go back generations, and that's why they justify shit.
Mhm.
That's mainly
Yeah.
what he was talking about when he meant revengeful. He was trying to unite the
Okay.
country under him. Siraj was when he said this.
Mhm.
You may then dispute that all of the above does not justify aggression against civilians for crimes they did not commit and offenses in which they did not partake. Uh-oh. This argument contradicts your continuous repetition that America is the land of freedom and its leaders in this world. Therefore, the American people are the ones who choose their government by way of their own free will.
See,
A
this
choice
is
which
that
stems from
democracy
their
shit where he
agreements,
said, because
policies.
you're a democracy,
Uh-oh.
we're allowed to bomb
The
you.
idea of being able to collectively attack civilians because the voting decisions of the population is exactly the shit that Israel said about
Hmm.
the Palestinian people.
Uh-huh.
Thus, the American people have chosen, consented to, and affirmed their support for the
And
Israeli
is it
oppression of
just
the
as bullshit when
Palestinians,
Israel
the
says it?
occupation and usurpation of their land, and its
Yeah.
continuous killing, torture, punishment, and expulsion of the Palestinians. The American people have the ability and choice to refuse the policies of their government and even to change it if they want. Extremely reductive, but like fundamentally, the sickness of the American political body is a representation of the sickness of our culture to an extent. So, the American people are the one who pay the taxes which fund the planes that bomb us in Afghanistan, the tanks that strike and destroy our homes in Palestine, the armies which occupy our lands in the Arabian Gulf, and the fleets which ensure the blockade of Iraq. These tax dollars are given to Israel for it to continue to attack us and penetrate our lands. So the American people are the ones who fund the attacks against us, and they are the ones who oversee the expenditure of these monies in the way they wish through their elected. Also, the American army is part of the American people. It is the very same people who are shamelessly helping the Jews fight against it. Man, he really hasn't even mentioned like Christians, really.
Damn juice.
There's
Just
also
over
the
and
reason
over
why
again.
he's constantly throwing Jew shit in there because he's
Mm.
playing to his base as well, because they're all
Yeah.
anti-Semitic as well, right? So
Mhm.
like, especially after this Wahari comes in, he really steps up the anti-Jew rhetoric because Wahari hates Jews, man. He is so like he is like the supreme Jew hater of Al Qaeda, or was.
The American people are the ones who
Interesting.
employ both their men and their women in the American forces which attack us. This is why the American people cannot be innocent of all the crimes committed by the Americans and Jews against us. Allah the Almighty legislated permission and the option to take revenge. Thus, if we are attacked, then we have the right to attack back. Whoever has destroyed our villages and towns, then we have the right to destroy their villages and towns. Whoever has stolen our wealth, then we have the right to destroy their economy. And whoever has killed our civilians, then we have the right to kill theirs.
See how he says the
The
economy?
American
Remember
government
how I
can
said
pass
like
no
you know, like why
Yeah.
did he choose the World Trade Center,
Look.
right?
Yeah. Economy.
Yeah, it was a he chose these was that's why the third point had to be of going to like what they say is either the Congress or the White House. That would be like the
Mhm.
military, the economy, and the government being hit, right?
Yeah. 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 The symbolism's there, and he's spoken about all of them in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Attack us in New York and Washington. If Sharon is a man of peace in the eyes of Bush, what does he mean by Bush? Let me look that up. Then we are also men of peace. America does not understand the language of manners and principles, so we are addressing it using the language it understands. As for the second question that we want to... Come on, guys. As for the second question we want to answer, what are we calling you to?
They
and
didn't know
what
he
do
was
we
being
want from you?
sarcastic.
The first thing we are calling you
That's
to
funny.
is Islam. The religion of the who could have thought? The religion of the unification of God, of freedom from associating partners with him, and rejection of this, of complete love of him, the exalted, of complete submission to his laws, and of the discarding of all the opinions, orders, theories, and religions which contradict with religion, he sent down to his prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Islam is the religion of all the prophets and makes no distinction between them, peace be upon them all. Why does he keep saying he makes no distinction between the prophets when Muslims absolutely hold? Okay, I don't know. Who could have guessed that the Islamic jihadists' very first
Gosh, you
call
almost had
to the
it.
West to change their behavior would be
You almost
for all-
had it. You almost had the realization of how hypocritical he was being.
So
It's
close.
literally against the Quran to attack Jews as much as it is
Yeah.
Muslim, depending on the interpretation,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of interpretations. I'm not a Quran expert.
You're always
all of them to convert.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yep.
But he
Sword
continues
verse.
for a while. It is to this religion that we call you, the seal of all previous religions. It is the religion of unification of God, sincerity, the best of manners, righteousness, mercy, honor, purity, and piety. It is the religion of showing kindness to others, establishing justice
Uh-huh.
between them, granting them their rights, and defending the oppressed and the persecuted. It is the religion of enjoying the good and forbidding the evil with the hand, tongue, and heart. It is the religion of jihad in the way of Allah, so that Allah's word and religion remains
What about the sin of
supreme.
the
No, it's
eyes, Bin
right.
Laden?
And it is the religion of unity and agreement on the obedience
So
to
the sin
Allah,
of the eyes is
and
very
total equality
interesting.
between all people.
It's like it's basically one of those only God can judge things,
right.
right? So like it's like you see someone sinning only openly, right? They're committing sin in the
Mhm.
open, and it's like it doesn't matter because you don't know their heart. So it's the sin of the eyes. You're passing judgment.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Yeah, that makes sense.
Bin Laden won't acknowledge that because that's all he is.
It's very funny. It's very funny that omissions say more than if you put them in there.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, anyway.
Doubt regarding their color, sex, or language. Jesus Christ. If you're a Zoomer and you fall for this shit, then go to like an evangelical megachurch and just believe everything you hear. Jesus Christ. It
They
is the religion
often
whose
do.
book, the Quran, will remain preserved and unchanged.
Yeah, because
after the other divine
they're
books
always persuaded by charisma.
Yeah.
They've got no reasoning skills. It's like if you can wow them enough, they'll follow you. It's drones.
messages have been changed. The Quran is the miracle until the day of judgment. Allah has challenged anyone to bring a book like the Quran or even 10 verses like it. 2, the second thing we call you to is to stop your oppression, lies, immorality, and debauchery that is spread among you. We call you to be a people of manners,
They love
principles,
calling
honor,
out
and purity,
debauchery.
to reject the immoral
By that
acts
they
Yeah.
mean don't
of
drink.
fornication,
Mm-hmm.
homosexuality, intoxicants,
Mhm.
gambling, and trading with interest or usury. I assume by fornication he means
No.
extramarital sex. Like I assume that because my understanding is that fornication just means having sex. Do they not have banks? Of course they do. It's like when tradcaths blame Jews for being
Guess where their
greedy and
bank
inventing
accounts are.
usury, and then like they live in a country where Christians run the
Taliban
banks and
bank.
charge interest. They're just saying this shit, you know. Keep in mind, Osama bin Laden isn't like a representative of the Middle East. He was a lunatic extremist and the black sheep of his very wealthy family. Like it's like having 10 children, 9 of them go on to carry on the family business,
Yeah, but
and
he
then
had
the 10th of them
100
decides to like,
siblings.
you know,
You
Or
know,
sibling.
it wasn't just 10 children. Like I think he has like 100
Yeah.
brothers and sisters.
They got busy. Are they all from his dad's side?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. What a nightmare.
Among 50 brothers
travel
and
the
sisters.
world.
Okay, so I was
as
doubling
as
it,
a-
thinking there was 50 brothers and 50 sisters.
Okay.
He's the 7th son of a Syrian mother. And then he
7th.
ends up, it's interesting because he marries a Syrian. Yeah, so that was just her, though. The 7th son
Interesting.
of that specific wife.
Mm-hmm. 50 others. Jesus, 50.
Yeah.
That's a
And like
lot.
so the Quran, like the polygamy with when I say the Quran, it's like not, there's a lot of interpretations obviously, but like
Mm.
generally it's like you have to be able to care for an additional wife. You just can't have as many wives as you want. You need to have, like, it's literally something that's for the rich, right? You have to
Yeah,
be able to
right. Okay.
provide for all of them.
Yeah, so if you can provide a healthy life for 2 women,
Mhm. Then you can.
you can take 2 wives.
Yep.
So get rich, have more, have a
Mhm.
harem of women.
Yep.
I mean, that's a motivation.
And like also they weren't necessarily like Muslim, right? Like bin
Yeah.
Laden was the Muslim of their very secular family,
Yes.
but they still practice these customs because it's just like Pashtunwali. None of these Taliban have read the Quran or anything like that. They just assume that it's in there because why would we do this if it wasn't in there?
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Could all be fixed by just reading.
No, because they would just twist it however they want. Also, it's like the Haqqanis don't care about the fucking
No,
Quran.
they're not going to either.
Terrorist leader and empower local like jihadist movements who did 9/11. We call we call you to all of this that you may be freed from that which you have become caught up in, that you may be freed from the deceptive lies that you are a great nation, that your leaders spread amongst
Yeah.
you to conceal from you the despicable state to which you have reached. It is saddening to tell you you are the worst civilization witnessed by the history of mankind.
Guess who
You
said
are the
that?
nation who, rather than ruling by the Sharia of Allah
Hitler.
and its constitution and laws, choose to invent your
The
own
first time I
laws
heard
as
that
you will
line.
and desire. So again, he's a fundamental.
It is guide. It is a guide. It is guide, not my people. It is guide. Be guide. Yes.
Reagan is that you're not a civilization, we're a civilization. You're
Interesting.
like anti-civilization, we're pro-civilization. Like you are the worst civilization. Classic Gaddafiism there.
Fundamentalist, and like many religious fundamentalists, he believes purely in divine command theory. All laws derive directly from their holy text. You separate religion
Yeah,
from your
sure, Vosh.
policies,
That's why Al
contradicting
Qaeda
the
is a
pure
democratically
nature which
run
affirms absolute
organization.
authority to the Lord and your Creator. You flee from the embarrassing question posed to you. How is it possible for Allah the Almighty to create His creation, grant them power over all the creatures in land, grant them all the amenities of life, and then deny them that which they are most in need of, knowledge of the laws which govern their lives? You are the nation
That's
that
interesting
commits
because, like, if you
usury,
remember
which
when
has
we
been forbidden by
interviewed, what was his name? The guy who came to talk about the fall of the Republic. I forgot his name. It's like, right? But our Taliban 2.0 episode,
Yes.
he's talking about like he talks a lot about what it says in the Quran, and he's talking about how it says
Mhm.
pursue knowledge all the way to China because that's the farthest they discovered when the Quran was written,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So like he talks about how the destruction of libraries by the Taliban is like that's it's against their own beliefs in the Quran because they like destroy knowledge.
Interesting.
So it's
What
interesting that
happens then? So what's the consequence?
well nothing.
Technically.
He's just saying that they're
Yeah.
hypocritical for doing this. It's anti-Muslim. But like, look what Bin Laden
Yeah,
is just
I don't
saying
give a
here,
shit.
where he's like the knowledge. You need the knowledge of the laws. Like he's literally Leninizing here, right? He's doing the Lenin thing, right? So he's saying that the
Yeah.
Quran encourages knowledge, but what do they mean by that? The knowledge of the Quran, right? That's what it's saying. It's not, even though it
Yeah.
says specifically there, go all the way to China to pursue knowledge. They're going to twist it however they want.
Of course. And that's how they've twisted that one.
Feel bad for getting this guy's name. I think it's Khalid, I think.
All the religions. So America alone allows for interest in bank loans as opposed to, every country on earth. Yet you build your economy and investments on usury. As a result of this, in all its different forms and guises, the Jews have taken control of your economy. So again, like, this is one of those things that if you're like a dipshit Zoomer, you should be asking yourself, why is he blaming usury on Jews when Saudi Arabia, his country, has banks that charge interest along with every other country?
He's reading
Why
bin
is he
Laden's
so
letter to
obsessed with
America.
pinning this perceived moral failing on Jews? What underlying motivations exist through his like? What ideological foundations is he building these assertions upon? Muslim countries have Islamic banking, which is basically the bank buys the thing you want, like a house, and they sell it to you with a markup, and you pay in installments. Yeah, they have their own like preferred system of charging people more shit for the loans that they need. They're doing it in a way that prevents them from calling it usury. Like, they have their own system for charging more if you need a loan, but like, because it's not usury, it's not Jewish. That's one.
Yes, he's
And
reading.
two, they also
He's
charge
reading
interest.
theory. Yes,
But,
he's
like,
reading.
international business
It's literally
is
the
a law of the
Leninist
land.
equivalent.
You know, Saudi Arabia deals.
You know, it's literally that. It's the like Lenin took all this stuff saying that people are stupid, I'm the smart one, you have to listen to me. He's very Leninist in his thought process. So it's really just jihadi Leninism.
It's a really funny term for it. Jihadi Leninism. Careful, you might give people ideas.
Good.
With
'Cause they'll
people
fail
from all
if they
nations.
follow
They were
those
absolutely
principles.
not purely conducting their business in the form of Islamic banking, through which they have then taken control of their media. Okay, now he's arguing Jews control our media, and now control all aspects of your life, making you their, read Jews, servants, and achieving their aims at your expense. Precisely what Benjamin Franklin warned you against. I guess at some point, maybe Benjamin Franklin warned against Jews. This
Bro,
is apparently what he was referring to with Ben
but yeah,
Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin, I think, was anti-Semitic, but also Benjamin Franklin. Ironic to bring up him, Bin Laden, right? Because like when he went as like a not an emissary, but you know, like a delegate. He was a delegate in France because France was basically funding a revolution because they were against Britain, right? So while he was in France being a delegate for America, supposed to be securing investors, all he was being a sex pest, like having sex with women and drinking wine and eating cheese over there. Literally, he did nothing over there but like, you know, commit the 7 deadly sins. And Bin Laden is like, hey, Ben Franklin, he's the right one in your history because he was anti-Jew.
That makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. Everything Bin Laden does make sense.
Yep, total sense.
Written by an actual Nazi in the 1930s with no source. The Franklin Prophecy warned
about sandwiches?
About the supposed dangers of admitting Jews to the nascent United States. No evidence exists for the document's authenticity. Written in 1934 in the pages of William Dudley Pelley's Silver Legion Nazi magazine Liberation. Nice. Good to see Osama bin Laden is pulling from nothing but the best sources.
Yep.
How as a jihadist
you think he hasn't read Mein Kampf, bro? Come on.
Not the best source.
You are a nation that permits the production, trading, and usage of intoxicants. You also permit drugs and only forbid the trade of them, even though your nation is the largest consumer of them.
Nice.
You are a nation that permits acts of immorality, and you
what
consider
about
them to be
what about the Haqqanis, who are your best friends and sheltered you from the Americans? Bin Laden, what about them?
They sell a lot of heroin.
They are literally the heroin kingpins. I'm sure they don't like all these synthetics cutting into their market.
I bet they're fuming about China injecting their fentanyl into their product. They're raging like, we have the most pure heroin. What the fuck are you doing? Why are you ruining it? Killing people.
I don't think they care that much. I think they care as long as their profits are maintained. They're not Walter White over there.
Well, no. It'd be funny if they were, though.
Okay, here's an idea. We're going to make Breaking Bad, but it's going to be... yeah, it's going to be about the Haqqanis.
Freedom. Hell yeah, brother. Osama bin Laden actually did hate our freedoms. you have continued to sink down to down this abyss from level to level until incest has spread among you.
That's
Okay,
we're doing it,
this
bro.
is hysterical considering the rate of a cousin marriage.
Well,
in,
bro,
Great idea.
think about it, bro. Think
Spain.
about this, all right? So here's the story, right? So it's about Gulbuddin and Haqqani and like using the American funny to like American money to like compete in their like, and then you get like the CIA funneling the heroin business. Like the CIA like empowered the heroin business because they needed to make money for the jihad against the Soviets, right? But like we'll write our own nasheeds for it, right? Like and we'll set it to the basically, you know how the Breaking Bad theme is? It's like bam boom bam. Yeah. That's how that will be the beat of the nasheeds as well.
It's a perfect idea.
Is it Saudi Arabia or is it Afghanistan that I'm thinking of? Hold on. Prevalency of co-sanguinity among
No, Tora Bora is
citizens
too
whose
late.
total
Tora
married
Bora is too
participants-
late. I'm talking. It's got to be
302.
Gulbuddin, right? It's got to be the Gulbuddin era when the CIA is coming in and they're like talking about how they hate the communists and stuff. So it's like a versus series where it's like Gulbuddin is trying. You know how like Walter White, is trying to take over heroin, and then the bikers come or meth. So it's like that. It's like competing. Like they're like. The Haqqanis are the heroes and Gulbuddin is like the villain getting all the money from the CIA. And then like Charlie Wilson comes and like tells Haqqani that he is like, what does he say about him? It's so funny. It's like the moral king of human kindness or something. Because he killed communists. He said he's like the moral god. He's so moral or something like that.
Weird.
I got to look up what he said.
Who were
I don't
in a-
remember.
committed marriage, 71.5% were married to first or second cousins. What? The Saudi population of Saudi Arabia are all Muslims, and marriage regulations permit marriage between first, second cousins, and double cousins. Here we go. Cousin marriage is a form of consanguinity. As of 2003, an average of 45% of married couples were related in the Arab
I
world.
goddamn love me a
Osama bin Laden epically defeated with facts and logic. Thank you. Not to mention Afghanistan's entire economy while he hung out there was opium. Yep. Also, he had like porn on his computer, right? Man, I wonder if very much like evangelical Christians, this guy is a gigantic hypocrite. The only
Hey,
real
you got
difference
there.
between this guy and like any sort of like lunatic alt-righter in America is that A, he was more successful, let's be real, and B, different religion. Otherwise, pretty similar. Cultures are different, but reactionaries are all the same. That is true. In the face of which neither your
Ding,
sense
ding,
of honor
ding.
nor your laws object. Who can forget your President Clinton's immoral acts committed in the official Oval Office?
I think
okay.
we're done.
I'm
No,
pretty sure
bro.
that this was him making an effort to like
got
drive
plenty
a
of
wedge
views.
in American politics.
He got there.
Again, like he'll do
Goodness
the same
personified
thing that, like,
is what
reactionaries will do.
he said about
where
Jalaluddin
they'll-
Haqqani.
Like Putin does this to a large extent as well, where they will deliberately inflame partisan tensions in the country in America as a way of sort of driving division.
As recent as the late 1990s as a moderate socialist.
Repeat that again.
It says so. The charismatic U.S. Congressman Charlie Wilson, who ran the American-led effort to unseat the Soviets from Afghanistan, talked about Jalaluddin Haqqani as goodness personified. Then there were leaked U.S. cables which would describe him as recently as the late 1990s as a moderate socialist.
A moderate socialist.
Are they talking? They're talking about how I assume they mean. They assume they mean him. Yeah, declassified U.S. cables called Haqqani a moderate socialist who did not embrace the Taliban's strict rules that denied girls education. The Haqqani functions more in the military area and is not a force in setting Taliban political or social issues, cables read. I mean, that's true. That's kind of why we were kind of like trying to back Haqqani in the Taliban takeover to try and push for open education.
that
Because-
works?
No, I mean, there's still no girls' education.
Hmm.
and fostering mutual antagonism. It's a way of striking against them to an extent.
A former head of the
After that,
CIA,
you can
while
not even bring him
speaking
to
on the
account other
condition
than
of
that.
anonymity, said that Haqqani was one of the good ones. He made them so much dope money, they just love him.
He made a mistake after which everything passed with no judgment. Is there a worse kind of event for which your name will go down in history and remembered by nations? That's what he brings up as like national shame territory, you know? Not slavery or like the Japanese internment camps or the Trail of Tears or whatever.
Yeah, because he believed
Clinton got
slavery
his
is
dick sucked
good.
by a White House aide. You are a nation that permits gambling in all of its forms.
Mhm.
The companies practice this as well, resulting in the investments becoming active and criminals becoming rich. You are a nation that exploits women like consumer products or advertiser to. Oh, man, I'm going to resist the incredibly easiest shot.
No,
on
Vosh,
how
what he means by that
radical
is shampoo ads show hair. That's what he means by exploitation of women there. Have you seen like if you go to like Malaysia, what hair dye will look like on the packaging? You're muted.
So what was the question?
Have you seen in Malaysia how hair dye packaging looks?
No, I haven't. Is it like blank or something?
It's funnier than that. I gotta find it. Hit play. I'll let you know when I find it.
Muslims treat women, but okay. Calling upon customers to purchase them. You use women to serve passengers, visitors, and strangers to increase your profit margins. Then you rant you support the liberation of women. You are a nation that practices the trade of sex in all its forms directly and indirectly. Giant corporations and establishments are established on this under the name of art, entertainment, tourism, and freedom, and other deceptive names you attribute to it. And because of this, you have been described in history as a nation that spreads diseases that were unknown to men in the past. Go ahead and boast to the nations of man that you brought them AIDS as a satanic American invention. So, yes, like
It's my favorite part. AIDS is a man-made invention.
far right American conspiracy theorists, AIDS was made by the government.
Yep.
You have
Sure
destroyed nature with your industrial waste and gases more so than any other nation in history. Despite this, you refuse to sign the Kyoto Agreement so that you can secure the profit of your greedy companies and industries. Again, saying this as a son of the House of Saud. Your law is the law of rich and wealthy people who hold sway in their political parties and fund their election campaigns with their gifts. Behind them stand the Jews who control your policies, media, and economy. And again, people might be tempted to look at some of this and go like, damn, Osama bin Laden has some points for making the incredibly rare arguments that Americans are sexist sometimes and also
Okay,
greedy. Like,
so-
wow, only Osama.
I found it. Exactly what I was hoping for. So it says netizens are bashing this Malaysian shampoo ad, but it's actually a parody. But like some of these are actually not a parody. It's like, yes, this ad where she's using the shampoo, she makes it's like a joke because the advertising will look like this, right? And stuff like that. So they made a joke ad of her using the shampoo, and it's just like her in the shower and like with the hijab on and everything. You're muted.
I am. That's very funny.
Osama bin Laden could have made these arguments. And then you turn around and look at what he wanted and what he wanted to promote. And it was like infinitely worse, you know? Just because he's a hypocrite doesn't mean he isn't largely right on some things. You don't get partial credit for being right on the most obvious points in the world. Like, a lot of what he says here isn't even an issue, right? Like, gambling, yeah, right? The only reason he takes issue with any of these things is because they defy his holy law. Like, It's not about humanism. None of the arguments that he's making are about making people happier or their lives better. It's not
Oh,
about
well,
making
you missed
people
the
more
earlier
prosperous.
parts when
It's
he
not
was
about
saying base
identifying
shit against the
problems
government.
in society and trying to fix them.
Hmm.
It's just about imposing Islamic law on everyone.
Yep.
That's it. It would be like listening to an evangelical Christian say that like
True.
men no longer trust their neighbor and we've all coveted like our neighbor's possessions.
Yeah, but
too
see,
much. And I'm
Vosh,
like,
he
wow,
opens
wow.
with the anti-imperialist shit before he gets to the convert to Islam or die shit, right? So he's already, these people are stupid and can watch a second thought video and get radicalized, right? So they already get looped in the beginning.
Can't deny he's right on this. Like in between the evangelical pastor ranting about prosperity gospel and how Jews control the media. Like no partial credit, 0 points. People's standards are so low. That which you are singled out for in the history of mankind is that you have used your force to destroy mankind more than any other nation in history, not to defend principles and values, but to hasten to secure your interests and profits. You who dropped the nuclear bomb in Japan,
He
hey,
loves
2
this
nuclear
shit.
bombs, not 1. Even though Japan was ready to negotiate an end to the war.
He loves this
Okay?
Japan shit so much.
Hold on.
You're still
Okay.
muted.
They didn't want to give up their leadership. All right. The fact that the emperor was not hanging from a lamppost at the end of World War II is a crime that we will never be able to account for. The entire war minister cabinet. How many acts of oppression, tyranny, and injustice have you carried out? Oh,
No, I disagree.
What?
The purpose of not killing him was to shame their culture because that's how their culture operated.
Yeah,
It was a
but
tactical move to not kill him. It was a more tactical move to stick General Fuckface next to him. That really famous photo where he makes him look really, really small.
but
That
the thing,
photo
have you seen what
did
they
more
did to the
damage to
president of
Japan's
Afghanistan though?
army. No,
When the
I
Taliban took over?
didn't.
So
Didn't they
when
just get him out of there?
when the Taliban take over Afghanistan, they dispatch death squads to find him.
Hmm.
And then they hunt him down and his brother, cut their dicks off, tie them to cars, drag them through the street, and then they hang them from the, like, it's like a lamppost, it's like a traffic control tower, right thing. They hang them from that and shove cigarettes and money in between their fingers to represent the theft and debauchery that they brought to Afghanistan.
It's very joyful.
Mm-hmm. But it's also one of those things that a lot of more like radical people will post as a meme is just his picture.
Mm.
And like he's like, well, you'll see a lot of tankies and their picture will be like that guy, Najibullah. Their picture will be Najibullah and they'll be like, we're a socialist. And like fucking my Afghan friends are always laughing at these people because it's like they already know that, like, as if you have a Najibullah picture, they already know that like you're a piece of shit.
That's very funny. But the reason I brought that up is because Vosh clearly doesn't understand. That's why it happened.
What?
Like
with the
that's
Japan
why
shit.
that
Yeah.
that's why the emperor wasn't killed.
Yeah.
Because it was easier to subdue the Japanese society through shame than it was force. They never responded to for like 400 years that they closed off the country. People tried. Like that was the only successful way that they could have.
I mean, it's a shame
The bomb.
they didn't shame the Nazis the same way because the Nazis probably would have been susceptible to shame culture too. Remember when there's one video?
I feel like
it's
it's
the
more
Balkans video.
susceptible to shame. I think it's more that it's those sort of cultures are more susceptible to shame before it becomes more popular. Like if you
But
get them right at that
in our Balkan
stage
video,
where they're goofy doofuses in the bush with a flag, right? You can mock them because it's like, you're a little boys club fighting each other in the bush. Like you just mock the shit out of them. Or you use the videos of Patriot Front training in the forest, stuff like that, and they just look ridiculous, and you shame them that way. before they get too big. But
In
I
our-
think at the point that they're so big, I think force is the only
in our
result there.
Balkans video, right before we cut to where I put the Joe Laden speech in there, it cuts with me going, I think shame-based cultures are kind of good.
It's not bad. It's not. I don't think it's a terrible thing, but it's definitely an argument to be had.
I read this as toppled. Oh, like he, like somebody got on their knees behind him and they pushed him over. And then I read it again and I was like, oh, well, someone would be on their knees.
Callers to freedom. Let us not forget one of your major characteristics, your duality in both manners and values, your hypocrisy in manners and principles. All manners, principles, and values have two scales, one for you and one for the others. Dude, Osama bin Laden's pointing out the fact that a nation state is hypocritical in the standards it sets for itself versus others. Wow, that's crazy. As opposed to all other institutions and people ever. What an incredible, what a wise man. The freedom and democracy you call to is for yourselves and for the white race only. As for the rest of the world, you impose upon them your monstrous, destructive policies and governments, which you call the American friends. Yet you prevent them from establishing democracies. When the Islamic Party in Algeria wanted to practice democracy and they won the election, you unleashed your agents in the Algerian army onto them and to attack them with tanks and guns to imprison and torture them.
Bro, he's talking about the Black Decade in Algeria now. Which is...
Osama is.
Yeah, so the Black Decade in Algeria is like it's not like it's little known, but there's a lot of media blackout at the time. But if you want to learn more about the Black Decade in Algeria, we recently did a video about the history of radical Islam, and there's a lot of stuff in there specifically about the Black Decade. And I'll send a link in a second when I find the playlist here. I don't know where it went.
A new lesson from the American Book of Democracy. I don't know that much about this conflict that he's referring to. However, something tells me that the Islamic Party in Algeria, a party that Osama bin Laden is praising, probably didn't actually want democracy.
Well, it's more complicated than that, and you can learn all about it in our video where we also bring in Bozistan to talk about it, who's a great history animated channel of Muslim history. But it was like his first on-camera interview that he did, and I found him because I was looking up videos on the Grand Mosque siege, and like his video was one of the better ones with better information, and there's still not good videos about the Grand Mosque siege, which is also, we talk about the Grand Mosque siege in this video. Ace and I had been wanting to do a Grand Mosque siege coverage for a long time. We've been talking about it for like a year, so we were like stoked we could finally do it. And then I think Ace is late. He doesn't show up until after we're done talking about the Grand Mosque siege. But he was prepped for the Black Decade. I didn't know shit about it, but I knew that. So like the Black Decade, it comes slightly after like the jihad in Afghanistan.
Okay.
So what happens is like as they crack down on the more like left alliance, there was like left Islamic alliances, right? And the more they crack down on that, just like how we cracked down in Iraq and they got more radical and more aligned with Al-Qaeda. So they crack down with it, and then it's like HIG or something like that. They're an Afghan type Mujahideen party that comes in, and they become the main like militant force of, and they like take over, and like it becomes even more of like a radical type decade. And like to this day, like Algeria is like super like anti like certain levels of Islam, and they're like don't fuck around with it.
I've had a bad history with it, so they just completely reject
well, it wasn't. It's their fault. They asked for it, you know.
Yeah.
But it's the Algerian Civil War. It's.
Yeah, I don't even know where Algeria is, to be completely honest.
It's next to Morocco, underneath Spain.
On the right-hand side?
Left-hand side of Africa. West Africa, it's next to Morocco.
Okay.
And then it's
Above
Tanzania, then
Sahara?
like Libya, and then Egypt, right? So
Mm.
it's the second country
Yeah,
in.
okay. Okay. Yeah.
It's a
I
very
mean,
French country as well.
okay.
Well, like
Yeah.
check this Wikipedia thing out, right? You wonder why he brings it up. So you see, it's FIS loyalist, right? So that's Islamic Salvation Front, right? And then
Yeah.
underneath that, from 1993, GIA, which is the Afghan guys, right? And then down here, supported by Al Qaeda, you know, Salafist Group for Preaching and Combat, known as the French acronym GSPC. And then it's like supported by Libya, Saudi Arabia, pre-war, Iran alleged, Morocco alleged, Saudi private donors. Wonder why bin Laden is bringing up this one specifically, huh? Which is why we cover it in our video, because it's so important to understanding radical Islamization, is this war that nobody knows about, because Algeria doesn't really want people knowing about it.
If they wanted democracy, Osama bin Laden wouldn't like them. Your policy on prohibiting and forcibly
No.
removing weapons of mass destruction to ensure world peace, it only applies to those countries which you do not permit to possess such weapons. As for the countries that you consent to, such as Israel,
What about
why
North
do they
Korea,
know?
bin Laden?
Then they are
Fucking
allowed to
idiot.
keep and use such weapons
Fucking
to defend their
dumbass,
security.
bro.
Anyone else who you might suspect of manufacturing or keeping those kinds of weapons, you call them criminals and you take military action against them. You are the last ones to respect the resolutions.
It's
and
funny because he
policies of
hates
international
Saddam.
law, yet you claim to want to selectively punish anyone else who does the same. Israel has for more than 50 years been pushing UN resolutions and rules against the wall with full support from America. Potato brain simp, holy shit, the emperor did not have no power. Basically, the leftist party that defeated the French in the Algerian War of Independence fought a civil war against Islamic parties. Wait, so Osama bin Laden is promoting the anti, like the bad party. Well, hold on. The Islamic Salvation Front.
It's hard to say that he's
founders and
promoting the
leaders of the
bad
FIS
party,
might have-
bro. It's very hard to say that. And first of all, Baathism is very socialist, and that comes into part of why they're very anti-socialist, because Baathism is both it's literally National Socialism. It's controversial because Baathists still exist today, and they don't like you saying this, but Baathism is Nazism. It's Arab Nazism, and if you go to the Wikipedia, it's like some people identify it as Nazism, and others say this is controversial, blah 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 blah. But the only Baathist left is Assad, and look how he acts, right? So these are an Assadist, socialist type, nationalist type government who cracked down on Islamists because they saw that how Islamists overthrew Iran, overthrew Afghanistan, so they are deathly afraid of Islamists. So these crackdowns happen, and these crackdowns make everything so much worse. And there's been a long policy of exporting your political prisoners, right? So they send these Islamic radicals to wherever the war zone is. They end up surviving, and they get worse. But it's a policy, and it's like that's why I say you can't do prison rate comparisons, bro. Like, we can't compare prison rates in these countries to us, especially when they torture.
Agree on all issues, but agree on the core objective of establishing an Islamic state ruled by Sharia law. Remember, this was what Osama bin Laden described as the Islamic Party in Algeria wanting to practice democracy.
Don't Nazis say the same thing about their parties, though?
Making people's lives better, and might just be a religious fundamentalist who will do or say anything.
Remember, we just released that PaxTube video where he says because Italy banned the fascist parties, they can't be democratic.
Yeah, that's exactly what they say.
Occasionally make points that sound correct until you dig into them a little bit, or at the very least ask for qualification. All in the service.
See, this is much more an in-depth analysis of his letter than the other dumb girl that we watched yesterday.
This is
not yesterday, but the other day. We're really getting into this. Is a very bin Laden educational heavy stream.
It's probably because she was a 19-year-old that knew nothing.
Is she that young?
She looked that young.
She couldn't even Wikipedia shit.
The imposing of the veil on female municipal employees, pressuring of liquor stores, video shops, and other establishments perceived as un-Islamic.
Bro, you want to
clothes,
see
and
something else
segregation
that's
of
funny?
bathing
Look
areas
at the
for children.
ideology right
I
there on the
love, I
page.
love-
Right? You see it right there on the page?
Mm-hmm.
Katoobism under Arab nationalism.
Anti-democracy.
democracy.
Anti-communism.
Ideology:
Mm.
Sunni Islamism, Islamic fundamentalism, jihadism, Arab nationalism, Qutbism, pan-Islamism,
Katoobism. You were close.
anti-communism,
Click on Katoobism.
anti-democracy.
I hope he goes,
Alright.
what is
As for the war criminals,
Kukadism?
which
And
you
clicks
censure
it.
and
Damn
put
it.
no criminal courts for, you shamelessly
Because
ask
it would have been
for
so
no
funny
community.
because you'd click it
However,
and
history will
immediately
not
be
forget the
greeted
war
by a
crimes being
Hitler
committed against the
mustache.
Muslims in the rest of the world. Those of you who in Japan, Afghanistan, Somalia, Lebanon, and Iraq. Japan is really not the best. Okay.
Look, bro, spread of Katoob's ideas. Who is it? Zawahiri.
Honkhead.
Mm-hmm. Told you.
To remind you of your latest war crimes in Afghanistan, in which densely populated innocent civilian villages were destroyed. Bombs were dropped in mosques, causing the roof of the mosque to come crashing down on the heads of the Muslims praying inside. You are the ones who broke the agreement. Also, please remember that Osama bin Laden's
Katoobism emphasizes what it sees as evil designs of Westerners and Jews against Islam. And it also emphasizes the importance of Muslims not trusting or imitating them.
Interesting.
So,
to retaliating, thereby causing more death and polarizing the Muslim world against the West. He doesn't give a shit about dead Muslims. Jihadists, Islamic jihadists, are like the biggest fucking proponents of martyrdom. If you die for Allah,
no.
that's dope as shit, according to them, whether you wanted to or not. So him provoking the West, which is exactly what he intended to do successfully, by the way, with the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, which was intended to polarize the West against Muslims, which worked. He did this because he was gambling on the lives of hundreds of thousands, millions of Arabs, in the hopes that it would ferment more hatred against the West.
Not just Arabs, Muslims.
He succeeded. So bin Laden won? Yes. I mean, there
bin
were
Laden
also
won,
demons in the White House at the time, so he had help. Yeah, I'm not saying that America and American leaders didn't choose to do that. I'm only saying that, like, his claims to be concerned for the lives of civilians are totally disingenuous. They're completely, like, a lie. And they drinking 4, killing more than 1,000.
Read one Wikipedia article.
You claim to be the vanguards of human rights, and your Ministry of Foreign Affairs issues annual reports containing statistics of those countries that violate any human rights. However, all these things vanished when the Mujahideen hit you, and you then implemented the methods of the same documented governments that you used to curse.
Bring
in
up
America,
torture.
You captured thousands of Muslims and Arabs. You took them into custody with neither reasoned court trial nor even disclosing their names. You issued newer, harsher laws. What happens in Guantanamo is a historical embarrassment to American values, and it screams into your face. You hypocrites, what is the value of their signature on any agreement or treaty?
See, he's based again, guys.
This whole thing out loud.
Mm-hmm.
The cold. What we call you to, thirdly, is to take an honest stance with yourselves, and I doubt you will do so, to discover that you are a nation without principles or manners, and that the values and principles. I'm just imagining some like Gen Z TikTokers reading this and like wistfully thinking about the extremely principled and mannerful world that Osama bin Laden lived in. You know what I mean? Like I have no idea. We also advise you to stop supporting Israel, to end your support of the Indians in Kashmir, the Russians against the Chechens, and to also cease supporting the Manila government.
Support the Russians against the Chechens. What an idiot.
We also advise you to pack your luggage and get out of our lands.
Right? We don't support the Russians against the Chechens. What a fucking moron, bro.
Yeah, no, that's awful. Wait. That's not what he said, was it?
Sixthly, we call upon you to end your
hold on.
That's the second time he brings it up.
To end support of the Indians in Kashmir, the Russians against the Chechens. So end support of the Russians.
Yeah.
Is what he's saying.
Yeah, but we don't support the Russians against the Chechens.
No, but he's just saying in general, people should be opposing it, I guess, is how I would interpret it.
Maybe that's what he meant.
Mm.
You're taking bin Laden in good faith?
Yes. Because at the end of the day, Russia is killing Muslims, and I don't think that he would be siding with Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Like
He had a chance
the
to
leader
fight
of
him.
Chechnya does. He did.
Go in coffins. Sixthly, we call upon you to end your support of the corrupt leaders in our countries. Do not interfere in our politics and method of education. Leave us alone, or else expect us in New York and Washington. What did he mean by this? We also call you to deal with us and interact with us on the basis of mutual interests and benefits rather than the policies of subjugal theft and occupation, and not to continue your policy of supporting the Jews, because this will result in more disasters for you. If you
Not
fail to
the
respond to
Jews.
all of these conditions, then prepare to fight with the Islamic nation, the nation of monotheism that puts complete trust on Allah and fears none other than Him, the nation which is addressed by its Quran with the words, "Do you fear them? Allah has more right, then you should fear Him if you are believers. Fight against them so that Allah will punish them by your hands and disgrace them and give
My brother, this is haram.
believing people, and remove the anger of their believers' hearts. Allah accepts the repentance of whom He wills. Allah is all-knowing, all-wise." Mind you, that the first condition is everyone converts to Islam. Yes, the first
Yes, that's because
condition
the sword
of, this,
verse.
of what he wants from the world is a total conversion to Islam
Mm-hmm.
for the world, a global conversion. He repeats
Mhm.
more Quran shit. I don't care. The Islamic nation that was able
Ace
to
got
displace
mad
the
at me when I
Sahara
made a joke about
previous-
this, but I joked and said talked about reverts. So there's this thing you'll see in people's Twitter bios. But it's one of those things that, like, you know, like imagine how many of these things just annoy him, right? But they call themselves Muslim reverts because they think there's like this belief that like everyone is born Muslim, like that everyone is
Okay.
Muslim because the Muslim is the end goal, right? So they're not converting, they're reverting to Islam. So when you see like Muslim
Right.
revert, you'll also see like location, London, England. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're from the hot spots.
It's always
The
just
really
places
radical
like
ones.
that, you know. It's this
Yeah.
people who will be like, Hitler was kind of based like this, you know, like Bin Laden. He doesn't, you know, it's not like you said that directly, but
empires
Give
like
them a
yourself,
chance.
the nation that rejects your attacks, wishes to
Add.
like you notice that
Not the flush.
remove your
Not
evil.
the plastics. Not the
you
flush.
notice that like he didn't say anything about subjugating Germany, only Japan. Isn't that weird how he didn't? Like you said, the omissions speak louder than the words.
Is prepared to fight you. You are well aware that the Islamic nation, from the very core of its soul, despises your haughtiness and arrogance. If the Americans refuse to listen to our advice and the goodness, guidance, and righteousness that we call them to, then be aware that you will lose this crusade Bush began, just like the other previous crusades in which you were humiliated by the hands of the Mujahideen, fleeing to your home in great silence and disgrace. If the Americans do not respond, then their fate will be that of the Soviets, who fled from Afghanistan to deal with the military defeat, political breakup,
Nice.
ideological downfall, and economic
Flexing
bankruptcy.
on the Soviets.
This is our message to the Americans as an answer to theirs. Do they now know why we fight them, and over which form of ignorance, by the permission of Allah, we shall be victorious? Nice. All right, so that's my manifesto. I typed it up last night. I was planning to send it to the Washington Post, New York Times, etc. After I got like your check on
Bro,
it.
I'm gonna put this video that I just found on the list to watch. This thumbnail is awesome. All right, so it's an anti-Katub video, but it says surprising connections. Right, it's got Evolva, like Peterson, the Unabomber and shit. Right, so he's like saying they have the same critiques as Katub is what this video is.
That's
so it's
so
like I'm
funny.
definitely gonna watch this video and see if it's funny.
All right, I'm moving on.
Is he done? What else does he talk about after this, though? We're doing a great. Everyone's here to see us.
Watching the TikToks. No.
Oh, of the people. Okay, yeah, we can move on. Now there are some things we can choose. Like well, you said the Richie Medhurst thing was short, so we'll palette cleanse a tweener with Richie Medhurst, and then we can do the Vanguard, Tim Pool,
I'm dumb, man. You know,
or Chunk, Uyghur, and Hassan doing their Thanksgiving debate. Those three are the next choices for the last video we'll watch today. So let us know if you know, whoever says, first come, first serve. I kind of
I've had
pisses me
enough.
off
I've
how
had-
he's just using like the most basic font. But also, like, I don't ever change the font in Resolve either.
Had enough of Israel killing 15,000 Palestinians and calling that self-defense. I've had enough of the media calling Israeli hostages hostages, but Palestinian hostages prisoners. You're upset about 200 Israeli hostages, but you didn't.
Where is this accent coming from? Is that he normally doesn't have this accent, right?
It only comes out when he gets mad, lad.
I've seen him rant before, and I don't think it's been like this.
You know what my favorite part about this is? He's acting like it's a spontaneous rant, but he's like set up the scarf perfectly and
he loves
done his hair and
he
set
loves
up
the
the
scarf,
lighting.
bro. He loves the scarf. Nice Christmas tree, Mr. Muslim, bro.
Yeah. The set's all done. It's all ready.
But he has a Christmas tree. He's out here. So no. Wait,
no,
are we passing
there are
on Chunk?
10,000.
Are we passing on Chunk or going on Chunk? See, because people are like Chunk.
Oof.
Palestinian hostages, please, enough. I've had enough of Israel throwing Palestinians in prison without charge, without trial, without even telling them the reason why. I've had enough of Israel bringing up the Holocaust as it carries out a Holocaust against Palestinians. What happened to never again? Or is it never enough?
What happened to your regular
I've
accent?
had enough of
Don't
Palestinians
do your
being
fake
punished
chamois
for
Arabic
European
accent. Speak Arabic with a fake chamois accent. Do that next.
crimes and Europeans giving away land that ain't theirs to divide. I've had enough of seeing children's bodies blown to bits and parents crying their eyes
Unless
out.
it's in
Where are my
Syria,
kids?
which it's based.
Half of Gaza's population are
Bring
children.
on the tears,
so if
bro.
you've bombed
Come
half
on,
the
turn 'em
buildings,
on. You can
who are
do
you
it.
hitting? Thousands
Who
are
are you
still
hitting?
under the rubble, all of them missing. Enough of this shit. Enough of this killing. I've had enough of spoiled Israeli settlers complaining from their cushy hotels.
Jack, we gotta go back 30 seconds, and you tell me this doesn't sound like the Grinch Stole Christmas-esque, like, fucking, like the whole house was, silent except for a mouse. What is that thing called? The Night
Enough
Before
of
Christmas?
Israel.
This is some straight up Night Before Christmas, Dr. Seuss-ass, like, alliteration here.
Is being punished for European crimes and Europeans giving away land that ain't theirs to divide. I've had enough of seeing children's bodies blown to bits and parents crying their eyes out. Where are my kids? Half of Gaza's population are children. So if you've bombed half the buildings, who are you hitting? Thousands are still under the rubble, all of them missing. Enough of this shit. Enough of this killing. I've had enough of spoiled Israeli settlers complaining
The
from their
camera
cushy
change,
hotels.
bro. He
while
has a
Palestinians
camera
sleep in the
change
rain,
in the
no
edit.
clothes, no food, and no beds. And Israelis have the nerve to pretend that they
God.
are oppressed. Shut your goddamn mouth. Do you know
He's
I've lost
doing
count how
a
many times
poem.
Israel have bombed the same refugee camp or the same hospital? Do you need to bomb a UN school 100 times before you've had enough? Israelis driving Palestinians from their homes. Another Nakba in plain sight.
insane.
Taking more land,
Bro,
taking
what
more
if
lives. Seems it's
he's
never
so
enough.
Oh,
He's
weird.
literally doing like a beat poem. What the fuck is happening?
Bro,
What did we?
the camera
what did we
shift was so
find?
funny. He literally turned to a close-up.
This
See,
must be
That's
this
what the
might
scarf is
be the best
covering up.
video.
The vomit on a sweater already. Mom spaghetti. That's what the scarf covers up.
This
You guys
might
know
be
he makes. You guys know he makes music, right?
the
And it
best
sounds.
video.
Yeah, and it sounds exactly like Linkin Park. So we're not doing Chunk.
I've had enough of Israelis always playing the victim, even as they victimize Palestinians and commit genocide against them. It's tiring, exhausting, such a bore, and no one is falling for that
What
crap
is
anymore.
this?
Israel
He's
claims to
rhyming
be the
now. He's
What
he's
is
literally
going
rhyming.
on? What is happening? You need to hold on. You need to post this. This is the funniest fucking video we've ever found. What is this? What the fuck
Bro,
is
he's
going
such
on?
a loser. He wants to be cool so bad.
Jewish state, but it's in a state of genocidal mania and doesn't speak for Jews. So many Jews around the world hate Zionism. They've had enough of this too. I've had enough of Israel claiming that Arabs hate Jews. This ain't about religion. They're lying to you. It's about European
It's getting worse.
stealing Palestinian homes. And if Israelis were Buddhists, Arabs are fighting too. I've had enough of talk show hosts acting like Middle East experts. Piers Morgan thinks history began on October 7. So the only trick he knows is
none of that had
Israel
flow.
and Rome.
None of that last sentence had
none-
flow. It was
none
a
of
little
it.
too direct.
It's fucking.
Maybe workshop a little bit.
I bet you finished this and was like, yeah, that was great. Editing it.
The
Oh,
Christmas
sick.
decorations in the background make it even
It's
more.
so
It was
funny.
the night before Christmas, right?
And hounds his guests with, do you condemn Hamas? No, we condemn
Jesus.
Israel and your
He had to
rubbish
say it
program.
like that,
I've had
too.
enough. I've had enough
Yeah.
of Americans claiming Hamas are terrorists when Uncle Sam's the biggest terrorist on earth. They want to lecture people about human rights and international law, but when it comes to Israel, they don't give a fuck anymore. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, Yemen, Lebanon. Those weren't enough.
What's that about
How
Syria?
many people have to die before you wake up? Israel is carrying out a genocide in broad daylight, suffocating the dreams of Gaza's children at night. When will the world put an end to their plight? Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
Haven't they suffered enough? 15,000 people killed wasn't enough. Dozens of doctors and nurses wasn't enough. Israel killing journalists across the Levant. So many in Gaza went to bed and never woke up. What's your excuse? When are you going to wake up? You need...
Hamas.
Wait, you ready?
Merry Hamas, people.
No, this is. You ready? It just says stop.
Bro, rhymed night with night.
What?
You said bro rhymed night with night.
Hi, do you want to know how to fix this? Stop.
What's this wildcard
That is-
video? Oh, that's that one.
One of. Hold on. Here for everybody in the chat. This is. Show everybody. Very important video that everybody needs to see.
All right. I think Vanguard might be the shortest to end on. People said no chunk. So
No chunk? Got it.
even though I put Chunk and Hassan debate in the title, but it's fine. Haha.
Ads! Apparently there's a thing that we can.
I guess we
note
can go ahead and
important
plow.
things in
Hmm?
the recording, but I don't know how.
I don't
It
think
says
it's
that
here
if you
yet.
press B, it gives you a thing.
I don't know.
But I
Might
want
be
to press
coming.
B just in case it like destroys everything. B might be the big blow up button.
I pressed B.
Nothing. Oh, look, marker created. What the fuck? Nice. Okay,
That's
I'm
it.
just gonna do that. That makes marking ads way easier. Thanks, StreamYard. We'll continue paying for your shit.
Right in to the David Pakman drama. This man
Smash
has
that like
he's like
button.
addicted to humiliation.
You heard him, guys.
There are some people who just love nothing
Give
more
us money so
than
we
to
can
do an
pay the
absolute
stream.
belly flop. And the thing about David Pakman is he has a boomer audience, right? So I actually think that to
Boomer.
the people that watch his show and tune into it, it's like an online MSNBC for them. So I think in his limited, narrow echo chamber, he actually has cultivated an audience.
He's sitting on the
that
floor in a
wants to hear
hotel.
like that wants to talk about how as a literal ethnic cleansing is going on and Joe Biden is working tirelessly not to stop it, but to end any kind of, red tape or regulation that would prevent Israel from raiding us for as many weapons as they want. The Intercept just wrote a really interesting story about that I think Brian Brim tweeted out if anybody wants to find it. But I think that's what's creating this massive rift between him and the rest of the left, where he genuinely thinks that he's speaking to, the majority of the people here. And really what he's
Exactly.
done is he's just gone full, corporate media pilled.
This is crazy, guys. He says Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas war has been remarkable. Woo.
If
So let's
that
take a
can
quick
only
look.
be followed up by remarkably bad.
I see all the same reports that you see. Young people displeased with Biden over
Oh,
handling
that's
of Israeli-Hamas war, so on and so forth. Disaster for Biden in 2024. First and foremost, you're telling me that those people who don't feel Biden has done enough are going to vote for Donald Trump?
Bro, look at. I
That-
think he's.
All right.
You
First
think
off,
he's
massive,
doing this
massive
covering
straw
his
man.
mouth and shit to show off his new hand tattoo? Like, look at the shine on that shit.
100%.
That shit was like done today, right? It's still got the
Yeah.
Vaseline shine on it and everything.
Mhm.
So he's like, I'm gonna cover my mouth with my hand to show my cool tattoos.
Yeah, it's always a rose, isn't it?
Bro, it's crazy that like the starter tattoo is the hand now. What does the world come to?
Mm. Yeah, I'm thinking about my hand being my first one as well. Fucking why not?
One
Go
day I'll
for
be
it.
able to afford them again.
Yeah.
When I could afford them, I
Okay.
spent that money on Syria instead.
And no one's saying that. I
Yeah,
haven't
they're
heard
just not gonna
anyone
vote
say
at all.
that. Yeah, they're not going to vote at all. Exactly. And
Based.
that's the problem with a president like Joe Biden, who doesn't really inspire anybody. He only inspires people to want to vote against the opposition, which is Donald Trump. But if you don't feel positively enough about Joe Biden to go out and vote against Donald Trump, then, that's going to leave a real opening for Trump's much more enthusiastic base to come through and deliver a victory for him. I'm still not 100% positive that that's what's going to happen. Some people are like pounding the gavel and saying that Trump's definitely going to win. I think, we'll need to reevaluate that in about a half a year or a year. I'm definitely getting worried about it, but the point is, no one is saying that people who are upset about Joe Biden's handling of the Israel-Palestine conflict are going to vote for Joe Biden instead. Or sorry, they're going to vote for Donald Trump instead. I haven't heard really anyone saying that. What I have heard is a lot of people saying that the youth vote, the progressive vote, and the Muslim American vote will be significantly depressed because of the way he's been handling this. And those people aren't going to vote for Donald Trump. Maybe a small percentage of them will, but a lot of them are
Doubt
just either going to not vote at all, or they might vote for a third party candidate like RFK.
it. Yeah, right. Don't vote at all. Fuck voting. Woo. Vote local, not federal.
Jill Stein, someone like that. But they ain't voting for Biden. And Biden did not win by very much last time. It was a pretty thin margin of victory. So if just enough people stay home in the key states like Michigan, which does have a pretty high Palestinian and Arab American population, then he might be totally fucked just based off of that alone.
100%. But what is interesting is I was shocked to see this the other day, Gavin. Have you been paying attention to the recent general election polls that include everyone? So this one has RFK, West, Jill Stein, Joe Biden, and Trump. And it is pretty interesting to see that Donald Trump is absolutely kicking ass in these polls. Even in spite of the fact that we anticipated that a lot of his support would be eroded by RFK staying in the race, it doesn't seem to appear that way. We can look at even a few more polls.
I'm sure these guys think that Biden runs Israel.
Biden,
You're muted, Jack, as always.
I mean, probably.
Biden is emperor of the Jews.
But these guys probably think that RFK actually has a chance at winning anything.
No, they don't like RFK. I don't think they like. I'm not sure. I think they might have been on the Maureen Williamson bus, and then she disappeared because I don't know. I think it had a lot to do with her treating her staff like shit and not paying them while trying to run as socialist.
Yeah, that'll probably do it.
Still leading by about 3 or 4 points in this most recent one. Just pretty crazy to think that Joe Biden has been so unpopular and ignored the demands of his base so much that even in the face of 91 fucking criminal charges, an insurrection, just being an absolute fucking oaf and dingus, the financial crimes that he's committed in New York. I mean, all of it compounding on that. You've been so dog shit as president that even with the fucking 7-point handicap that was taken by RFK, you're still losing.
There you go.
And obviously it's not a general, or the general election isn't a direct, vote. But actually, if the Republicans are leading in the polling, that's doubly bad for Democrats because they have an easier path to the Electoral College because of how rickety and fake our election system is.
Oh, we have a video on the Electoral College coming out soon.
Hey, we do. Haha. It'll be somewhere.
That doesn't make any sense, first and foremost. Secondly, it is actually remarkable the amount of success that Joe Biden has had here, pushing Israelis to allow aid into Gaza, warning Israel, don't overplay your hand, getting involved in the negotiation for hostage.
He allowed like 5 dump trucks worth of fucking quote unquote aid into Gaza after greenlighting a massive genocidal massacre.
It's like people who are like it's like people who get mad because they say masks are better than nothing, right? For COVID, right? And they're like, stop telling me masks are better than nothing,
I mean, they are.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the point. It's kind of the point is Joe Biden is like, it's better than nothing.
I mean, literally, a sleeve over your fucking face is better than nothing.
Like, I remember arguing in the group chat I de-radicalized you from, somebody was saying this. I'm like, do you cover your mouth when you cough? And he wouldn't answer. Like, why do you cover your mouth when you cough? Why do you cover your mouth when you cough?
That's funny.
But they wouldn't answer.
No.
Campaign of bombing, which left like 1 million plus people displaced, killed tens of thousands. But yeah, luckily he let some aid in afterwards. You know what I'm saying? A couple trucks showed up with a few loaves of bread.
Who's
some
he?
Band-Aids,
do you mean that
maybe a couple bottles of
Biden
water.
let aid in?
How is that any different than like?
Yeah, he's talking about Biden.
Not Netanyahu.
I don't think he's mentioned Netanyahu.
And really, as far as like Biden handling it, it's Blinken. Like, don't take away Anthony Blinken's credit. Have you seen that man in the fragile container? He is stressed. He's working hard.
Fucking paper towels at Puerto Rico. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, it's not the same. I understand the differences.
It's actually way worse. What Joe Biden is doing.
way worse. But yeah, in the same way that to be like, oh, Donald Trump, he allowed for the delivery of aid to Puerto Rico after that. It's no different. It's just complete Democrat propaganda.
I was like, what? Who did he mean by this? He's talking about Blinken.
That is tangible and that is major. And meanwhile, Fox News is talking about Biden's age. I see all the same reports that you see. Young people displeased with Biden over handling of Israeli-Hamas war, so on and so forth. Disaster for Biden in 2024. First and foremost, you're telling me that those...
The argument for sanctioning Israel. Obviously, yes, the U.S. could do more. They could boycott, they could divest, they could sanction. So there's also a degree of pragmatism and realism we need to establish here. We need to know where the limits of the U.S. government are. They're not humanitarian limits. They allow dictators to get away with a lot of shit. They backed the Ethiopian genocide against the Tigrayans. And meanwhile, the fucking PSL, Hezbollah TV, acts like it's the CIA backing the Tigrayans and that's why they have to die, just like in Syria, right? And so... could they sanction Israel? Should they? Yes. Should they? Yes. The issue is when we get too uppity with Netanyahu, he knows exactly how to push the buttons. And what he does is he goes and he strengthens Saudi Arabia. So that's the question here, is that you have to, one, be realistic about the U.S., what they're going to do, and then also be realistic about how it's going to strengthen Saudi Arabia. And with what we have seen in Gaza, I would say that it's probably still a good policy to be harder on Israel from what we've seen in Gaza. But also, it's very hard to predict what the effects of a war will be until like a year after it's over.
After.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's very bad. You know, I don't think that the IDF taking over Gaza and like running out Hamas through the tunnels is going to do good things. But I'm also of the view it's like Syria, where it's like if we like glassed Damascus to get out Assad, is it better than letting what he did to the country? So like that type of argument is still like you'll never know type thing. Like we'll never know what will happen if we just continue to let them bomb Gaza into glass instead of doing a ground assault that was, I mean, it's going better than we thought it would be, but also at the same time, they are getting their tanks killed like crazy.
Cool footage, though.
Can you be more specific on strengthening Saudi Arabia? Yes. So this is a specific thing that happens. Who's the one guy? A lot of people hate him, like Lucas Weber of Militant Wire hates him. Peter Zahan. Peter Zahan, this is a big thing that he'll always be arguing as the strengthening of Saudi Arabia. So for starters, there's the whole thing with the Saudi deal going through that would actually help. That's been postponed, right? So like they're actually very open to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. And when Israel strengthens their arms deals with Saudi Arabia, it makes both of them more independent from the US. Now, an anti-imperialist will say any independence from the US weapons is good. But when you think about it, it's like, oh, it's gaining independence for who? Saudi Arabia and Israel? Like, I think those are the two worst US allies, like as far as like the spectrum goes. Like those are really the ones, if people criticize our imperialism and who our allies are, it's them before any other country, I think. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Like there is like no reason, like they have no interest in overthrowing the House of Saud because like they're all good with it. And like I love that video of Jared Kushner saying that Jews are safer in Saudi Arabia than in college campuses in America.
Yeah, definitely.
Send in Jared.
You know,
J-Man.
They could also strengthen Turkey, you know, but that doesn't happen that much because Turkey can't really be open about it. Saudi Arabia can do whatever the fuck they want. Yep.
Also,
literally, as I was saying it, this comment came in. I agree. Turkey is worse than Saudi Arabia. The difference is Turkey is actually I disagree with the Freedom House score that they gave Turkey because Erdogan literally almost lost a democratic election. Like it was so close to him losing. Everyone was predicting he was going to lose, even like especially with his earthquake controversy. And even though he eroded institutions of democracy in that country, the fact that he was still so shit that he almost got voted out says a lot about how democratic Turkey is. Unlike Saudi Arabia, which, you know, you can assassinate your way to the top. You have to imprison your own family, imprison your own mother to get to the top, like Mohammed bin Salman has. Can they really get by without... Does Iran have strong Russian support? Strong? No, but Russian support, yes. Iran is also an imperialist force, right? So Turkey, Iran, Israel, and Saudi Arabia are all competing imperialist powers in the region. And another thing is like Egypt is also like Saudi Arabia is the number one arms buyer. It's like $25 million worth of arms in 10 years. And then Egypt is like 10 million or 15 million. Egypt's in number 10 slot, right? So Egypt and Saudi Arabia are both huge US arms sales. And that's one of the reasons why like we did peace talks in the first place, is to get to us to have more arms markets to sell to. Because we lost Iran when the Shah fell. Yeah. Yep. After Masino. Yeah, and also this Russian support isn't what it used to be. I mean, we can say Armenia has Russian support and Iranian support. Look how that went. But technically they support Azerbaijan. Not like the EU does, buying all Azerbaijan's gas that they also bought from Russia that they're selling back to the Europeans along with their own gas. So that's the thing as well. Sanctions, what do they do? What have they done to Russia, right? The Europeans are still buying Russian gas. They're just buying it through Azerbaijan, which might be worse, right? Like fueling Azerbaijan and Russia is way worse than fueling just Russia. Maybe, we don't know. If Russia had like, a few extra dollars to spend on massacring Ukrainians, like that could be worse just for Ukraine as well, like just the numbers wise, it might get more Ukrainians killed than more Armenians and Ukrainians have been killed. We don't know. Either way, these are the questions you need to ask about these things. And we're not Anthony Blinken and Joe Biden and stuff, holding the keys to the kingdom to do something like this. We need to acknowledge, even though we're like against states and nation states, we need to acknowledge like the limitations that they actually have and the actual genuine fear that they have of like what worse could happen, like that's why they won't overthrow Iran. They won't back the protests in Iran and have a fucking color revolution for once. Can you imagine how based it would be if the US actually did a color revolution in Iran and actually did their first color revolution?
Who don't
it's not that
Biden
they don't have enough, right? They have enough to basically survive a boycott, right? So if we said no more arms for, like, we cut back on selling Saudi arms, and Trump actually had to because he was so open about it, and then they like dropped a massive bomb on 40 school children in a bus that was dropped on a bus that was in a market district. Like the last place you should be bombing for terrorists is school buses in the middle of market districts, right? So these kids still had their backpacks on and shit. They were coming home from school to see their family. All 40 of them died from a direct hit from a laser-guided bomb. So after that, a lot of, like, John Oliver has an episode on it as well. Like a lot of critical support, or a lot of critical adversarial action came against Trump's arms sales to Saudi Arabia, and they had to dial those arms sales back. So that led to them buying more arms from Israel. So they have enough to get by. I don't think Israel really needs the US. It is like a zero-sum gain relationship, though. The US does benefit from having Saudi Arabia, mainly economically. But there's also other benefits from having them there. If Saudi Arabia were loyal to other people and doing other people's interests in the Middle East, it might be worse for the world as well. There's a lot of things that aren't listed as a terrorist organization by the US, but basically anything that a NATO country will list as a terrorist group, they tend to do it. And that's why there's like, they have like specifically the Freedom Falcons on there, not just the PKK. But I don't think they have the YPJ on there like Turkey does. But they definitely have a lot of the more stronger PKK affiliates on their terrorist list.
Has done enough are going to vote for Donald Trump.
Oh, did it start over? Oops. Yeah.
Yeah, it fucking deranged. But at this point, I think that is essentially what David Pakman is doing, right? He is the damage control. He's a propagandist. He's actually things are better than you think. Like, basically the Steven Pinker of the Democratic Party. It's like, actually, things used to be a lot worse. It's just like random, like, whataboutism that kind of makes everything seem a little bit better. Oh, well, he did give them all of the weapons that they needed to brutally displace over 1 million people and cause over 10,000 deaths and all of that. But don't worry, he has a heart.
What's next?
I think we can do an endurance challenge with that Tim Pool video. Since people didn't want to see Chunk, we need to do at least one thing that's in the title. So I think that's a clip as well. I found a clip. It's not the whole podcast. It's just I think it's a 15-minute video that we'll wrap on, because I think the other one with Chunk is a little longer. Also, what's this white video? Oh God.
I am proud to be white. Why aren't I?
Oof. This might be worse than Tim Pool, man.
Allowed to be proud to be white.
Just your skin color? Because yes, that is
It's
wrong.
Jubilee. Is she going to criticize this Jubilee video? Is that what this is? You're muted, as always. I can just unmute you myself. And I muted you again because you unmuted when I clicked it.
I am muted because the
I know.
dog is
I know.
very loud.
I'm
and
just
the
letting you
house
know
is
that you're always
very loud.
talking when you're muted.
Yes, I think that's what we're going to get.
Okay, so my overall understanding is that Biden and Blinken are more or less doing what they can realistically to keep Israel and Saudi and Arabia. Yeah, and also what you also have to think about is how the US would see the October 7th attack, right? So how normal people actually look at that attack and how bad it was, right? There is a degree that the regular citizen is also like almost like a vengeance, you know. If they knew the extent of what actually happens in Gaza, there would be a lot more. That's what I think is like we really should, even if they're Hamas agents, like Jerusalem Times says, we really should support Palestinian journalism, even if it's incorrect, right? Just because the extent really needs to be talked about. I think you really just need to show people what is the suffering that's actually going on.
Yeah.
But like the push that they've been trying to do, like to the agreement for I think they lowered it to 4 days for the ceasefire, and they were trying to get 5 days before that. Like they were trying that, like before it was like flat no. Next week, Netanyahu said he's open to it. Week after that, it happens. So they're doing what they can, but I think it's totally fair to be critical and criticize everything they're doing at the same time, even if it's unrealistic to do more. I think it's fine to constantly call out imperialism, even if there's no alternative. Just like how we look at prisons, right? So we all want prisons to end, but then you like ask people about like, oh, what happens to replace the cops, and they get a little iffy, right? Because we don't exactly know an alternative of what's going to happen. We can be against prisons without knowing necessarily how to replace them and what the alternative would be. Like if you look at our YPJ interview, this is one of the things they say when they're talking about their prison camps there for Daesh, right? And it's like they acknowledge that they have prisons and these things and how it's hypocritical of the revolution, but they still recognize that the end goal of the revolution is to get rid of these things. And I think that's an okay philosophy to have, is still be against Biden and Blinken, but don't be stupid and empower like Hamas about it as well. You know, it's a fine line.
Has to be of color.
I don't deserve men of color. Interracial marriage is wrong. I don't think white people should adopt black kids.
Imagine being white. Hey guys, it's Misha, and welcome back to my channel. So
she seems nice. This is not. This has got to be not. She's got to be a nice lady who doesn't talk about how it's cool to be white, right?
How actually.
She doesn't. She's not giving me fascist vibes like Pearl does. Have you been talking? You're muted.
Yes, she just popped up, and I don't know anything about it.
It's only 7 minutes, so let's see. Either way, I sent you a Tim Pool clip
towards black people, including pumpkin spice lattes, apparently. So we're gonna take a look at all of that. But before we begin, please make sure you are subscribed and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my.
I just want to know if you're racist or not.
Y'all would not date and why? Dating a white person because I don't like.
It's definitely going to be a racist video.
Now imagine if a white person said, "I'm not going to date black people because, well, I don't like black people."
Libs of TikTok, but for black people.
We are allowed to say things that other races are not allowed because we're poor, pitiful black people. We've been oppressed and we're in so much need of help. So, they can't dare hold us to the same standard they hold everybody else to. I said it once and I will say it again. Black people in America have black privilege.
That's why now, because of this privilege, we have so many people lying on their college essays saying they're, 10% black, 50% Native American when they're not, just so they can get a better chance of getting into the university because they know that's what they want to see. If you had to lie about being white just to have a better chance of being accepted, everybody would be talking about how racist that is. But when it's flipped, it's fine. That's fine. I believe that hate is taught and that any race can be racist.
The root.
Now
Bro,
we have
this
black
is like
parents encouraging their
this
children
is like
to hate white
using
people.
boots.
Ugh.
Whoa, lighting changed. This is she turned off a light and put on a Himalayan salt lamp in the background. This is like using Boots Riley as your source, you know? Like, come on. Like, I
Not
like
the best.
Boots Riley and I'm not like anti Boots Riley, but let's be honest, the dude is a whack job about his shit. But like, I love him, you know? Like,
Not the best source.
Extremely radical.
Yeah.
Also have white parents encouraging their white children to hate themselves and all white people.
Hug my son. Get back. Not even your skin color. Like, go find somebody else. Walk with your little friend.
Here's an interesting video I want to look at.
White people have culture.
White
fucking
is not
guy.
it's not a culture. I can't relate to you just because
Oh
you're
my
white.
god.
I think you could say that for any.
If this girl doesn't recognize why black culture is a thing, it's not African culture. We have Irish culture, we have Italian culture. Where's the African culture? It was removed, right? So that's why
Yes.
black culture exists. It is the Harlem Renaissance and shit.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
The ethnicity, though.
So throughout history, all of the dances, the music, the art in Europe, let's say, that none of
Oh
those
my
people have
God.
culture. That's not culture. Have you ever
don't understand.
attended a
Not
history
culture.
class?
Inferior.
Ever?
If we were all black, could I
It is
relate to you
culture. It's
guys?
just like European is not whiteness, right? Like it's more like to get like I'm like anti-whiteness, right? Like as a descriptor, right? Because whiteness is like this whole thing that's like but I'm not anti-blackness because that's different because their culture was erased.
Sure. I get what you're saying.
Mhm.
I would also agree that there's no white culture because in dominant cultures it's just that culture, right? Australian
Yeah,
culture
that's what I'm
is
saying.
white
It's like it's
Australian culture.
Italian, it's Irish culture, right?
Yeah, where it's like white American culture is different to, you know, like New York
Mhm. And like
or
with like Asian
California.
culture, right? Where they can say like what's the word? Oriental, you know, Oriental, but that's like an outdated term, right? I remember ramen, the blue ramen used to be called Oriental flavor, and now it's just soy flavored,
Yes.
soy sauce flavored.
Yeah.
Isn't that great? Is that so funny?
Yeah, I remember that as well. It was called Oriental. I think
Yeah,
it was blue.
so
Might have
like
been green.
there is like just because of like not having like the Abrahamic religion in the East, there is a little bit of a different vibe for a lot of Eastern countries that is more common than we have with like the Middle East and Africa. The chinchillas are fighting.
Just because of the
That's
color
all.
of our skin.
Yes, because they go through very similar experiences. Like they'll get discriminated against, and you're not getting discriminated against because of your skin color.
That's why they have a culture. And white people don't. Both black people and white people have culture.
Okay.
Being oppressed has nothing to do with it. This is so weird. This is so silly.
I am proud to be white.
When you hear I'm a proud black person,
It's such a tricky question. I'll have to wait for you to get back.
Go ahead. I'm just calming down the chinchilla fight.
Okay.
I think empowerment, I think strength, I think courage, I think, you know, all these amazing things that the black community has done and accomplished throughout the years. But then when you say I am a proud white person, already there's so much.
Yeah, but guess what?
and-
Again, nobody is like I'm you know, Italian pride, Italian culture pride, Polish pride, Irish pride. It's only when you get to English pride where they're like, "Hey, what?" Which is fine. I'm fine with
Yeah.
English not allowed to have pride. You know,
Mhm.
like German pride. Then there's a history behind those
Yeah,
things. There's not a history behind like even Italian pride is fine. You know, even though there's a fascist history there, right? But like German and English, those are the weird ones. Spanish pride, nobody cares.
Yeah.
France, I don't think people really care because France are like already elitist. Like I'm a true Parisian.
Yeah, nobody likes them anyway.
Yeah.
Involved in that.
Why aren't I allowed to be proud to be white? What makes it wrong?
Yeah, what are you proud of? Just your skin color? Because
You
yes,
haven't been
that is wrong.
oppressed.
So black people can be proud though?
It's funny because the white
Like,
people
when
there
we're talking
don't
about it as a
understand.
No,
White people
nobody
want
in this
so
video
hard to be
understands.
woke, you know, and they don't actually
Mhm.
understand. Most
Yes.
people, like, not even like being black doesn't necessarily mean you understand, right?
You got to be woke.
Proud black person, they've been oppressed.
But what you can do is say, yes, black people, you can be proud of being black, but white people, that's racism. Like, actually do something impressive. That would be something to be proud of when you
They're so
achieve something in
stupid.
life. But just
Now the
talking
lighting's
nonstop
changed again.
about your
Yo, she's got a fucking silver play button back there. This fucking racist bitch. What's with this StarCraft Terran Putin thing? Why is Putin's head in where the StarCraft Space Marine is down there? What was that? Is that an ad? What does that say? What does it say? I couldn't read it. Don't click it. I just want to know what it says. Are you muted and talking again? Just check the mute button before you start talking. My God, man.
It's just an ad for nothing. It's just a ripoff.
They just put Putin's face in this. Look, it even says xcraft.net.
And look how much time we've wasted on it because of Putin.
No, you know why it's doing that? Because I said we should play StarCraft. That's why it's giving you that weird Putin StarCraft ad. I guarantee you nobody cares we wasted time looking at that Putin ad.
Nothing. That's like saying, I am proud to be human. I did so much to get to this point, to be human. What? I was born a human. Okay? I am so proud of being a woman, guys. I am so proud of being white. I am so proud of being a human. I am so proud of living on planet Earth. That's like saying you're proud of your hair color or your eye color. You did nothing. So let's take a look at this video.
I enjoy fried chicken.
Hell yeah.
I love it.
I am proud to be black.
All right, y'all. That's what I'm talking about. Hand clap for y'all. Yeah.
I'm glad that we all strongly agree. Yeah.
I'm so excited for her comments. I'm so excited.
We family, and I love being black.
Let's say you experienced a lot of racism, but you succeeded despite that, right? You got through it. That's something to be proud of. Okay, that makes sense. But just saying, I am proud to be black. I am proud to be white. What exactly are you proud of again?
Okay, so she's
Being
against
born
pride in
with
general?
black skin color? Interesting.
I guess so.
Now, we already know this because we've heard time and time again that if you don't want to sleep with a trans person, you're transphobic.
If you say
here we go.
big trans folks, you're transphobe.
Fat phobia is racist. It's anti-black.
Not a
Here's your
thing.
reminder that fat phobia is rooted
We're
in
not
racism.
not starting.
Phobic.
We're ignoring all of this.
People in one group and
You can't have dating preferences. So many people will also say that if you are attracted to a certain race, that's just who
Oh,
you're
here we go.
attracted
But
to,
height is
that's
fine.
racism.
Is there a
Here
race
it's gonna
that
be.
you tend
It's
to
fine to
be
say you
with?
can't
I
date
think
short
black.
people. Right? That's where we're going here. Short people get the short end of the stick. You know, you can discriminate on
reckon that's
height,
where
but
it's
not
landing?
race. It's gotta be.
Black people.
Black love all day.
Has to be of color. It's necessary, I think, for someone to be able to have some type of understanding.
So it's okay for black people to say, I exclusively date
Funny.
black.
I
But
also
then if a
won't
white
date white
person's
women at this point. You know, it's more of Americans. I'm just not interested in Americans,
See,
right?
I'm the same thing. I am not interested in Australians at all. Get the actual fuck away from me. Nothing worse in my eyes.
says that it's racist.
Do you think it's racist to have racial preferences?
I'd say yes, there is a problem with having a racial preference.
I do tend to date white men more.
Yeah. White people would say that.
Mhm.
Especially in front of a camera.
Yeah, of
Which
course.
is probably
Yeah.
why all the relationships.
Also, like
What
people
else are they gonna
underestimate how
say?
terrified white people are to be perceived as racist as well. Which is good. I think if there's one thing for white people to be
think a part of me
terrified
is
about,
like-
it should be that, right?
Yeah.
I don't deserve men of color.
As much as I would like to say that I don't, when I made my eHarmony account, I was definitely only trying to match with certain people.
You just know it's white.
Okay,
It was
racist.
pretty an uncomfortable feeling
Why was it uncomfortable?
because I painted myself as a racist.
She has a preference for white guys. You can say that.
Wasn't definitely not a conscious decision.
There's so many fucking
Bro,
white
I
dudes
know
in
that
Seattle.
dude.
Anything but
I 100% know that dude. I've seen him before.
This guy.
Yes. I have seen this guy before. Fucking like, bro, I've probably his ears are kind of shit. Like you can see how like jagged and blown out one of his ears is on that one side, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, but like I probably sold him that fucking septum spike, man.
Definitely not a conscious decision.
Even his voice resonates with how I remember
Also,
him.
when there are interracial couples,
I will never understand interracial dating. Them folks literally had us enslaved for 400 plus years. Wait, so you holding the entire white race accountable for what their ancestors did? Wow.
Relationships are not natural. Y'all gonna hate me for this one, but I don't give a
hang on, pause. Okay, you need to go back and look at some of our old video because they're not called gauges. Gauges are not a thing. Wire gauge is a measurement. It's the American wire gauge, right? That they do measurements of. They're normally measured throughout the rest of the world through millimeters and centimeters. Now, piercing stretching is a rich cultural tradition that we see throughout cultures throughout the world. You know, even like down to the labret stretching, where you'll have like people who actually have the lip plates and things like that. I only know one guy who has lip plates today, and man, if I would, it is not the guy I would show people, you know, to get them down with body acceptance for this stuff, because normally they're like very bizarre people. I'm too prejudiced to care about the explanation. I have stretched ears.
I feel like interracial marriage is wrong.
I don't think white people should adopt black kids.
Same thing with adoption. If you see a white parent or white parents adopt a black child, sometimes you'll hear them say, oh, but that's a white savior complex. Maybe their priority is to give this child a stable and loving home.
Are you muted and talking again?
I am. Like, no. Just no. The rich people who adopt African kids are doing it for optics.
Doesn't Angelina Jolie do it?
Yes.
She adopts actual kids from Africa, though, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
but like,
I think if your
100%
argument
doing that for brownie points.
Yeah, some people will that I think they're better because they adopted a black child than other white people. I could see that in like the waspy stuff, but like also like the issue is also maybe something more systemic because we have a lot of child separation among minorities, right? And if you're separating children and then putting them with a white family, pretty sure the Genocide Convention says something against doing that. So it's acknowledged enough that it would be in the Genocide Convention of exchanging children. For example, Andrew Jackson, what race were his children? They were Native. He had adopted Creek children, right? So why did he, even though he's the main guy who like really kickstarted the real genocide? You know, there was already massacres and ethnic cleansing and plenty of genocide going on, but like the Trail of Tears and shit kickstarted by Jackson, who had, not only did he have adopted Native children, they were orphaned by him, right? He killed their family.
Very cool.
That's genocide, right? That's
yeah.
That's clause E on the Genocide Conventions.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Literally just a hatred for white people because the white person must be evil. They must be
I
inherently
agree.
racist. How could they actually love a black child? When you're actually promoting diversity, when you have this beautiful example of love and acceptance, nope, black belong with black, white belong with white. Backwards. Supporting segregation because you think all white people are racist and evil. That's all racism. You know what's not racist though? Pumpkin spice lattes.
So basic.
Okay, let's Magacommunism. Last video. Tim Pool, Magacommunism. You've never seen this guy. You don't know who Haas is, right? Okay, well, you're gonna love this.
This is a nightmare.
I
I've never seen anything like this. Please help. Haven't you been picking up on what's going on out there?
Normal people become terrified of criminals.
Shots were just fired. Police just came out.
Uh-oh. Lauren Southern detected.
Is that this one?
No, they're advertising that he just finished his documentary with Lauren Southern.
Is this the video you want, though?
Yeah. It's only 15 minutes, right?
We're headed there right now.
Myself, it refers to the business owners in the middle class, somewhere between the lowest and highest.
You got to go back. You're
income.
missing the framing.
Fight of their own government.
I was correct about my statement on bourgeoisie. I just
what do you mean?
fact checked myself. It refers to
Oh,
the business owners in the
bourgeoisie,
middle
30-second
class,
time
somewhere
penalty.
between the lowest and highest income.
No, but see, he's telling this idiot that he doesn't know what bourgeoisie is, because Haas is the ultimate idiot. He's the ultimate LaRoucheite, right? So he's like, he is literally dumb. Like, he is the ultimate useful idiot. Like, I don't think he's managed at all. He really is just this dumb. So Tim Pool did the thing that we always do. We just Googled what words mean that communists are telling us the definition of.
Yeah. And he does it in real time. That's awesome.
Yep.
And the merchant class.
Right, but in Marxism, bourgeoisie refers to a specific relation of production. Sociologically, it may vaguely refer
looks like
to
an idiot.
all these other things,
He
middle
is.
class. But from the Marxist
He's the guy who debated Drew. And he asked about it was the people of Taiwan, but he was asking about someone else, like native people or something, and it was like the native name for Tibet or something, and he was just really dumb debating Drew.
Yeah, they do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is those who
I think they call it
the capitalists who own the means of production.
What do you mean two ways? What does that mean?
My point
is
it does not
because
mean
you're
the
also
ultra-wealthy
pro
oligarchic.
race mixing, right? You're pro race mixing and stuff like that, and that's me too. I'm very pro race mixing and stuff. Is that what two ways mean? What does two ways mean? Two ways mad? I was too mad in two ways instead of just one way, or you were torn both ways.
Probably the latter.
Elites. It means the guy who owns the mom and pop pizza shop.
No.
Yes, it does.
Well, here's the thing.
Literally originated in France, relating to urban charters for people who owned businesses.
The bourgeoisie started out small, yes, but what it has concretely evolved into is what Lenin would describe a imperialist bourgeoisie or a monopoly bourgeoisie. And Lenin actually doesn't identify. He makes a distinction. He says there is a petty bourgeoisie, which can be an ally of the proletarian movement, and actually should be an ally of them because they have an interest in overthrowing.
Well, see, but this is
the ruling bourgeoisie.
I'm going to tell you the issue I take.
Yeah.
The issue I take is I use a general academic term for a certain class. You deny the definition, and then when I say here's at least generally, you said okay. Well, Marx says something different about it. So look, are we talking about the same thing or?
So I want to just be clear about what I think. I don't think people who own ma and pa shops are part of the same class as the oligarchical elite.
This is the issue I take with modern.
He really is an idiot.
But Tim Pool is going to take issue with communist changing words. I'm going to agree with Tim Pool suddenly. Just wait.
Oh no.
Leftism and even what's happening now is racism means something different. Bourgeoisie means something different. It means whatever we need it to mean.
My God.
It means what the book says if you read
No,
the
it doesn't mean what the book says. It means
oh my God, I'm agreeing with Tim Pool right now on all
if you want to
of
pull up
this.
the great
But
Soviet
think about it.
encyclopedia
Think
on
about
the
this is what I mean by how stupid it is. Haas is just dumber than the rest. If it was second thought here, Tim Pool wouldn't be as aware of what's going on, right?
Yeah.
But Haas is just so dumb about it, right? So Tim Pool is doing the you're just changing what words mean thing, which is easy
literally
to do with
half
someone
of their
like
argument.
this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So if I say a word and then you say my book says this word means something different, this is the obfuscation of words for the purpose of winning a political debate.
Hold on. Let's just clarify what we mean.
It's also a tenet of fascism.
Yeah, it's new.
I don't mean.
That's why I asked, does the bourgeoisie represent? And you said no, it doesn't. But what you're doing is you're taking a different, altered definition of a word to change what our argument actually
but
is.
the bourgeoisie does not mean this for Marxists. It has never just meant that for
It
Marxists,
has,
and it
though.
also doesn't
It has,
just
though.
mean this.
What
for
is
the purposes-
Marxism, right? What is it's right? It's workers own the means of production. So literally, the pizza shop business owner is bourgeoisie in Marxism. Because he doesn't, the workers don't own the business. It's a bourgeoisie business. Simple.
Of what I'm trying to say.
And this is what the modern left does in the United States with racism and class.
But
they say our word means something different. You misunderstood us.
Hold on. You're trying to say that because I reject the view that the bourgeoisie concretely that we're talking about is the ma and pa shop.
I'm saying
this means I'm obfuscating words.
When I said
call it whatever you want.
You could have said that actually is the traditional academic view of bourgeoisie. In Marxism, however, instead you said no, you're wrong.
Okay, so you're upset that words can mean different things in different
contexts.
contexts.
Upset that the left typically changes the definition of words to suit their political ends.
I think anyone who just uses words in different contexts, which everyone, regardless of their political alignment, does, I just think this is just an unfair kind of characterization of what I'm trying to say.
Look,
the right does it
here,
too.
The thing is racism.
Here. That's why they do this. So much for the tolerant left. This is a guy that actually knows about socialism. They brought on to talk about how Magacommunism isn't a thing. So he's got his book there in front of him to promote his book. You know? Oh yeah, well he's a LaRoucheite. The other guy's a LaRoucheite. What did you expect, right? He's an idiot. So this guy's got his book in front of him. He's here just to promote his book, and now he has to deal with fucking Haas, right? Who is worse than Jackson Hinkle, right? Jackson Hinkle is somebody I'd prefer to deal with over Haas because Jackson Hinkle at least smiles about it, you know. Haas is just like, it looks like he's like he just like pounds his keyboard until it make word, you know. He is the monkey on the typewriter. Like his whole face is everything about him just is like not there.
Unwarranted prejudice against somebody because of their color or ethnic background. Racism to a Marxist means the power structure, about the power structure. So it means that a certain segment of society, usually racially based, oppresses another segment of society. So you can get a black football player on $40 million a year who is oppressed and is suffering racism by some white guy on food stamps. Racism means something totally different to a Marxist than it does to most of us. Democracy means something totally different. And as to your point about infiltration, I'm going to do some promotion here because I write books about Marxists in government. I say in these books, Security Risk Senators, I profile 30 currently serving U.S. senators who are involved with Communist Party USA, Democratic Socialists of America, Iran, China, Cuba, and North Korea.
He's going to be like, these people have NIAC funding. That's what that book is about. You know? You're muted, as always.
Your boy sounds like a nutbag, and he is a Kiwi. Not an Australian. Win.
Everyone here is a nutbag, bro. You don't get on Timcast not being a nutbag.
True.
Patty Murray out of Washington State,
and
deeply involved with the Communist Party USA for decades.
And how powerful is this person you're saying?
Well, she's one of the third-ranked Democrat in the Senate.
And you're saying that she is currently in the Communist Party USA?
Bro, I just noticed.
She has worked with the Communist Party USA.
When it cuts back to Haas, right? Timcast logo, it literally has a beanie on the @ symbol. You'll see when it cuts back to Haas. Look at that shit.
Yeah.
That's more cringe than the ammo case saying Timcast on it.
Yeah.
On social policy in Washington State, she has funded their organization. She's steered state funding to their organization,
and she's funded them to create a working class popular movement, or funded them to
create to get money to take over institutions.
Like which institutions do the communists control
in Washington State?
Right, which ones?
They control most of the labor unions in Washington State.
Which labor union in Washington State is controlled by the Communist Party?
Well, by the communist movement, SEIU.
So you're changing the definition of words. Instead of the Communist Party, it's the communist
God,
movement.
that
What does
was
communist refer to concretely?
Let me finish. I said she is
Do
deeply
you see how
involved
he's
with
like
the
brute
Communist
forcing
Party,
his way
but
through
also
everything?
Because
Define
she,
deeply.
They worked in her campaigns. She funneled money to
How is that
mad. He's
deeply?
personally
What do you mean?
insulted.
What do you mean by
No,
work?
that's
Did
just
someone
him.
pass out leaflets in the Communist Party? The Communist
he's-
Party is irrelevant.
Your counter to my criticism of you changing a definition.
I'm just
is,
applying your criticism.
No, you're
to
literally
you.
not. You're
Okay, Bin
arguing
Laden.
semantics of
He's
the
a
word
fucking
work
child.
and deeply.
And
when I asked you to
they're
define
all
bourgeois,
children.
and you gave me a Marxist alternate definition of it.
Tim, to be clear, okay,
this is a very specific word.
I'm a good
Deeply
I'm,
and work.
Okay, I'm a good Maoist. I will do the struggle session and the self-criticism myself. I repent for refusing to draw equivalence between the meaning of the bourgeoisie as it applies to France in the 1600s
And
and
the
the
general
bourgeoisie
definition
today.
used by regular people to convey an idea, and you
Right,
arguing the definition was wrong for the sake of your ideology.
So by
The old
by
guy
the
is so
bourgeois- Okay,
confused.
let's talk about ordinary people. Technically speaking, bougie. The word bougie is
He has
used
no idea
in
how to
like
use a
hip
mic.
hop culture to
Oh, there's
refer
the
to like
floating
the
disc
ultra rich.
thing.
It's
I
not
just
used to
noticed
refer
it.
to ma and pa shop. So actually, you're changing the definition to mean something scholastic
and say bougie.
Step into Wix Studio, the web creation platform built for agencies.
Fucking the leaf. Jesus Christ.
I know, right?
Ooh. And breathe from that fucking torture.
Yeah.
Bourgeoisie academically
is-
has a meaning that is what people are trying to convey an idea to make an argument.
Academically speaking, that's the technicality. If you want to be an academic, you have to consult the
Okay.
literature, and the
This
literature
guy,
states that
it doesn't matter if he sells books and people actually buy them, because he's going to be part of a conservative lobby that's going to buy up all his books anyway and give them away for free. Just like how they do with Ted Cruz's book. Not Ted Cruz, Ron DeSantis. Did it again, unironically. Got them confused.
bourgeoisie, typically speaking, is referring to the hegemonic.
Bro,
or big
this is literally a debate on
Petty
bourgeoisie.
bourgeoisie is a different classification. It's not synonymous. Now, you can say I'm changing the definition of words. Please, I implore you, read elementary Marxist literature, even the Communist Manifesto. It's only 7,000 words. It's literally in there. It doesn't equate the capitalist class with the petty
point I'm
bourgeoisie.
making is, you read a book from Marx and determined his interpretation of the word is now the universal interpretation.
So where did the academic community get it from?
It's a French word.
Okay,
That
what
goes
did
back to the 17th century?
So you're saying the academic community in the contemporary context refers to the bourgeoisie as the 1700s French burger class?
Like
the
when
mercantile,
we're conveying a general idea.
It does, though. Well, let me look up when it was actually. Yeah, I'm looking it up.
Definition to
First.
better understand it, and we read a general view of it. It has a meaning.
I don't know how to spell it.
So what
that's
we
the thing.
often see in the United States from the left is, as Trevor pointed out, with the word like racism, they redefine the parameters based on their specific academic view outside the confines.
But he's redefining the word communist to mean anyone who has any tangential association
That's not what he said.
whatsoever.
He said she's worked with the Communist Party. He said how? She's funded the communist movement. That is a one-to-one correlation.
Okay. What is a communist movement without the party? What is that
Well,
refer
it's
to?
Democratic Socialist America, it's Liberation
The
Road, it's
Democratic,
Freedom Road Socialist Organization.
do you know who founded the Democratic Socialist
Michael
America?
Harrington.
So why didn't he call it a communist party?
Because he wanted to infiltrate the Democratic
So
Party.
Michael Harrington was being insincere when he talked about his denunciation of Marxism, Leninism, and communism. Is that what you're saying? What's your
100%.
evidence for that? What's your evidence for the
because he then
insincerity?
he hooked up with the New American movement, which came out of the Communist Party USA,
Which
and
came out of
SDS.
it. So these are people who splintered out of it.
But
and
they
He's making an argument that says that Georgia Maloney isn't a fascist because she was a part of 3 fascist groups before this one. but
like,
not now, right? No, she's not a fascist.
So before the French
That's
Revolution,
literally the argument.
the masculine and feminine terms identified relatively rich men and women who were ruling members of the Third Estate. You'll hear people repurpose the Third Estate as well today, right? So then it's like it's the Third Estate, the government, and the clergy, aristocrats, and then they're like, hey, we want the tennis court party, right? So it literally says, though, like, largely today, it's the Marxist definition. So even Tim Pool is wrong here.
were still Marxist-Leninists. Right now, you've got
on what
democratic
evidence?
socialist because they explicitly state it. I've got huge documents. Democratic
they stated it in the past, or they state it today.
Right now.
So the DSA is officially a Marxist-Leninist party.
He's a LaRoucheite,
Marxist organization, which
it's not. It doesn't matter if he read it or not. His interpretation of everything is going to be through the LaRoucheite lens, because that's what he is. He's the LaRoucheite's guy. And I think the last stream we had, we learned about LaRouche, right? Didn't we?
Yeah, last stream. Yeah, last stream.
They're absolutely not. The DSA rejects Marxism, Leninism as authoritarian.
Absolutely untrue.
The whole point of democratic socialism, the whole
reports
point
of
of
AA
democratic
fire in
socialism
Iran. It's probably a drone attack. That they're shooting at drones, like there might, loitering munitions, rockets, and stuff like that. It's rare that Israel will actually send a jet into Iran, but they will. People don't talk about it, but the US and Israel do bomb Iran. Iran doesn't like you to know about it because it makes them look weak. So they don't report on it, which benefits us because we won't report on it. It's a little secret. So
all people into accepting communism.
Was to compromise with the liberal hegemony. Because they were
it was
saying,
to take over the liberal. They explicitly stated they got there to infiltrate the Democratic Party. Democratic Socialists of America gave us Obamacare. This is the central secret of came through
What's
Quentin.
The evidence? What's the evidence?
I can talk. I've written whole books on this.
Okay,
I can look. It came through Quentin Young, who was a Communist Party member.
What about John McCain? Did John McCain give us Obamacare? You're muted, as always.
Doesn't matter.
He then became a Democratic Socialist American member and was Obama's personal physician. And claims. Let me finish.
Yeah,
let me finish. Virtually, open borders came through the communist movement. That is a Communist Party and Democratic Socialist America construct, which has been used to destroy America. The push for the Iran nuclear deal came from the communist movement. The central secret of communism is this. The small Communist Party takes over labor unions. The labor unions influence and control the Democratic Party.
So you're saying Joe Sims of the CPUSA and Rosanna, Joe Sims and Rosanna are they're the puppet masters of the Democratic Party in America. Is that?
Yeah, I am saying that. The people around them.
Joe Sims is senile. He doesn't even.
Look, the Communist Party USA. I know Joe Sims too.
Yeah.
The Communist Party USA is led by Joe Sims, but the movement is much broader than that. You've got the Liberation
You're saying he's the
Road.
puppet master.
Well, he is part of that apparatus.
Who's the puppet master?
Well, I would say Judith LeBlanc would be right up there.
Who is that?
Judith LeBlanc. She's the one who put Deb Haaland in as Secretary of the Interior.
And what is their relation to the Communist Party?
Judith LeBlanc is a member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party.
And she put
all he does is go, what?
Put someone in a position of power?
Ask questions.
Absolutely, she did. She mounted a campaign.
He's like literally a kid going,
Interior.
why?
Yeah.
She ran it. They had Facebook pages.
I mean, that's how I would argue with a fascist.
And everyone here is a fascist.
Well, exactly. But if I was in an argument with him, I would just be like, why? How? Why? Until he walks away because he's a fucking mental child.
Yeah, that helps.
And he would walk away. Yeah.
Pages and buses. She was she
interest
got a whole
in
bunch of
discussing
celebrity endorsements like Alyssa Milano, Mark
really?
Ruffalo,
Wow.
Sarah Silverman.
Mark
They
Ruffalo.
got Deb Haaland nominated as
Sarah
Secretary of the
Silverman.
Interior.
So you're
That
claiming
is 100% documentable.
You're saying that she
Literally
originated that
Zionist.
entire campaign.
Yeah.
100%.
So,
she led it.
Can you
She
name
led
a
it.
single Communist Party member who is in office right now?
I can. That is not the point.
No, that is the point.
That
because
is
one of
not-
the things we've been pushing for is them to field candidates instead of kissing
hey,
Democrat
no,
ass.
you're
and
trying
they
to
can't
you're
do
trying to
that.
dissimulate here.
No,
Look,
they don't
it is-
even. They don't have
this
any
is-
independence. They're subservient to the Democrats.
Let me finish my point.
They're subservient to the Democrats.
What he's saying is quite literally, if you don't declare you're a member of something, you have nothing to do with it at all.
That's right. There's
Well, we need
there's a
proof.
communist movement. There's a few people in the Communist Party that direct a movement. The communist movement is why we have open borders. It's why we have Obamacare. It is why Iran is about to get the nuclear weapon.
We have
the
open
communist
borders
movement
because of the
control-
fucking Constitution. Right? Literally, even early America, they were acknowledging that refugees will build this country. And then they passed the fucking Alien and Sedition Act because too many Chinamen were coming.
Stealing your gold.
Yeah. It's one of the most
the
fascist
labor
policies
unions
that
of
we've
this
had.
country, and the labor unions control a Democratic Party.
As long as
That
we
is
change
why-
the definition of
that-
communist movement.
Yeah, the communist
agree.
movement is anybody who has an allegiance to the communist movement. Some are party members, some are not. Some are Democrats. Like Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut, deeply in bed with the Communist Party. While he was criticizing Trump for Russia, he had a
At least
Communist
he's not
Party
saying
member as one
AOC
of
and
the
Bernie
key staff
Sanders for
members.
once.
You
And
know,
what was their key role as the staff member?
he was running one of his offices.
So I think what you're doing is cherry picking cases where communists are acting as subservient to the Democrats. Because here's the thing I can
cases.
prove.
Look, Obamacare.
Here's what I have practical
Obamacare
experience
was completely a Democratic Socialist of America program.
Look,
it is now the law of the land in this country.
That's
the
not
fact
true.
That Deb Haaland,
Not true.
The fact that Deb Haaland is cancelling
His problem.
energy leases all over this country, directly put in place by a card-carrying open member of the Communist Party USA, which is completely documented.
This guy wants to
I
take away
have
my
it in
health care.
books.
Sure.
I can show
before
you all of it.
Before we get into the book, I think what we're actually touching upon here is the simple fact that the Communist Party USA has relinquished its role as an independent political organ of the working class and has entirely subordinated itself as an institution.
Spoiler
to the
alert,
Democratic Party.
Democrats
So it
have
makes-
always
hold
been
on, hold on,
against
let me finish,
borders.
'cause I let you finish. It
Right.
makes sense that
Pause.
here or there you're going to find
Obama built the so-called concentration camps, right? So
He sure did.
Democrats have always been they're the same thing. You are not going to get a better border policy from Democrats or Republicans. The reason why they're the same thing is because they acknowledge, well, we do have better immigration and better border policy than most of the EU, right? Well, we do have that because the fact that you can't be born in most countries and become a citizen, I think that is fucked, right? We allow that.
Yeah.
The so-called anchor babies, right? We allow that. Most don't. That's why a million Afghans are being thrown out of Pakistan right now, right? Just because they were, born in their grandparents were born in Afghanistan. They're not Pakistani citizens because of that. So the reason why they're so restrictive on the border and why they have these overflow camps and all this shit is because these people, these migrant people, are benefit to exploiting for capitalism. We wouldn't have our grocery stores overflowing with food where half of it gets thrown away if it wasn't for these migrant workers being exploited. So the Democrats have always been like this. Nothing has actually changed. It's just like people got more critical because Trump wanted to build a wall. So it's like other people are not totally funding a border wall, and the other ones want to build more of the wall.
Staffers of this or that person who's actually in power, who's a member of the Communist Party. The whole role of that organization is just to serve Democrats. And I know this because it's a huge point of contention within the party. People in the party are not happy about this, but Joe Sims and Rosanna, who are corrupt sellouts from the committees of correspondence era, who are reformists from the Gorbachev
there is
era,
offense.
who reject
There is
Orthodox
offense there
Marxism,
already.
Leninism.
Literally, it's just a bigger, more iron, you can see it. There's literally a few feet away from the border wall, there's a fence. And that also has big gaps in it as well. They can just walk around to.
Continue to toe this line. Why? Because they're corrupt sellouts who are institutionally subordinated to powers that are higher than them. And again, this has historical precedent. Traitors to the working class movement, ex-communists, make for excellent servants of the ruling class.
I love that
they did
game.
in World War I when the Social Democrats of Germany and France.
He said nothing.
I agree with you 100% about Joe Biden punting the issue. We have a video about, it's like Fox News fear-mongering about immigration, because it's when we did videos and when Title 42 was expiring. this one guy's like on Fox News talking about communist Chinese now coming to this country through Mexico, and how they're like taking over the universities and stuff. So we have 2 of those videos on immigration there specifically. We've tried to get people who are like immigration people on, but none of them will do it because they're all part of like the PSA and shit, and they know that we're anti-PSA, so they're like elders because they're in a cult and they have to get approved first. So they're always like, nah. And like, it would be cool like to find an immigration lawyer or something like that, but like that's one of the reasons why I'm going to change my Twitter name, because it's like it needs to be something like more like journalisty, because it interferes with me getting guests for shows at this point. Anyway, I think that's
I gotta stop looking at screens.
Yeah, I think that's all we have here. So
just a quick stream on a Sunday. It's still Sunday, right? Yeah.
I mean, is it for you?
Yeah.
It might be Sunday for me now. Anyway, it's 2:30 for me. But that's normal.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming, everyone. We just went up to 8 as well.
Yeah.
But
you can still watch the
yeah, we
last
did it.
3
We
hours.
did a fucking the last stream we did was what, 6 hours?
7. It was 7 hours.
Yeah, I want to see if the shorter 3-hour stream does more numbers post stream, because that 7-hour stream didn't do as much numbers. So anyway, thanks for coming out. What do we want?
People probably say that 7-hour number tag, and it's like, fuck that.
What do we want to sign out with?
You are garbage, okay? If you get a rise out of attacking the powerless, you're garbage.